Chapter 115. The crowd outside the forest could not help but exclaim. They instinctively felt suffocated. This was a duel that they could not hope for. It was like a bomber bombing above their heads, making them feel terrified. They thought that Jiang Xiu would be at an absolute disadvantage. However, they did not expect Jiang Xiu to leisurely stroll out of the forest. He was relaxed and domineering. If he was unscathed, then the one who flew out just now was the murderer. How is this possible? Wizard Zhang Xiaoling's eyes widened. This evil creature was a monster that had lived for hundreds of years. The power it possessed was so strong that even after hundreds of years of research, the ancestors of the Zhang family were not confident that they could defeat it. Such a big monster was actually beaten up by him. How strong was this kid who was still wet behind the ears? Mr. Jiang, this is Mr. Jiang's strength? Gu Shu and Wu Rong were stunned. The body that was sent flying and fell to the ground emitted black smoke that was as thick as ink. His whole person was indescribably evil. A head of white hair that reached his waist spread out, making him look even more demonic. Roar! He let out a beast-like roar and his whole body trembled. He slowly got up from the ground, as if he was in great pain, but more than that, he was angry. You've angered me. Boom! His body rushed out like a cheetah. At the same time, the body that rushed out of the black smoke grew larger at a speed visible to the naked eye. The original height of a normal person was now 2 or 3 meters. His whole body was filled with black smoke, and he kept blasting out. His white hair flew like flames. Oh my God! When elder sister Li saw such a monster, she cried out in fright. In the next moment, the netherworld had rushed in front of Jiang Xiu. Let's see the evolved form of the Yin God. Antennae grew out of his forehead and his whole body was covered in scales. He was faintly discernible in the black smoke, as if an ancient demon god had arrived and wanted to intimidate this world. Monster! Monster! Even Boss Wang screamed in fear. Die! Jiang Xiu had already peaked into his original form. He had evolved much more thoroughly than the ancestor of the Wang family. Judging from his form, he should be infinitely close to a god. Ha! Jiang Xiu waved his hand, and a formless sword blade slashed out in the air. A few months ago he wouldn't even be able to unleash such a sword blade as his divine body was too weak. But now the 27 divine patterns were enough for him to unleash the Skyline sword blade. At first, the sword blade was incomparably slow, but in the next moment, it suddenly flashed and arrived in front of the underworld wheel. Boom! A loud crash resounded in the void as the two forces collided violently. It was as if two waves had collided head-on. The momentum was astonishing. In everyone's vision, the black gas that filled the sky was forcibly cut into 2 halves, as if the entire world had been dislocated. How can you have such powerful divine power? Netherwheel exclaimed. What was cut in half was not only the black gas, but also his body. The power of the sun god is not something you can imagine. At the same level, the difference between the Yin god and the sun god was like the difference between a breath and a punch. Roar! Accompanied by his painful cries, the black gas in his body constantly drifted out. After the billowing smoke, his damaged body was once again healed. Ha ha ha! I said before that I can't be killed. The Yin god naturally had its own Yin god's power. Seeing this scene, the surrounding people felt a chill in their hearts. Even his body was cut in half, but it could still heal. Then, how could he be killed? My ancestor once said that this monster is an evil spirit. Ordinary power can't kill it at all. It has an immortal body. Zhang Xiaoling had read about it in the notes left behind by his ancestor. What should we do? Boss Wang asked in horror. Zhang Xiaoling shook his head. There's no solution. 3 generations of my ancestors have studied it for more than 100 years, but they still couldn't find a solution. The only solution is only 10%. No matter how strong he is, he has no chance of winning against an evil spirit that can't be killed. Zhang Xiaoling said. Everyone listen to me. Retreat immediately. Retreat within a radius of 1 mile. All the patients in the hospital must be evacuated. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable. Boy, the game is over. Netherwheel's eyes emitted a terrible green light. His whole body became gloomy as he pounced on Jiang Xiu. It's time to end it. Jiang Xiu stomped heavily on the ground. With a bang, his whole body shot out as if there was a spring under his feet. He soared into the void and stretched out his arms. 10 meters. 5 meters. The two of them were about to collide. 2 meters. Boom. Jiang Xiu suddenly punched out. The chi on his fist was like a cannonball that was shot out. The powerful force presented a huge visual impact. The power surged wildly, and the surrounding air seemed to be distorted. The black gas that filled the sky was pressed into a depression. The powerful fist pushed out and Netherwheel exploded. It was as if he had been hit by a cannonball. His chest, abdomen, body, and forelimbs all exploded. His whole body turned into dust and was completely blown away by the wind from the fist. He was blown to pieces with one punch. The crowd originally wanted to run away, but when they saw this scene, they were all shocked and stood on the spot. Zhang Xiaoling was even more stunned. He could even blast an evil spirit to death. When he won, the monster was killed. But in the next moment, the black gas that was blown away by the fist suddenly gathered together like a hurricane. At a speed visible to the naked eye, it formed the shadow of Netherwheel. Moreover, it was becoming more and more solid. Sure enough, this evil spirit can't be killed. It's starting to condense and take shape again. The crowd that didn't have time to be happy suddenly quieted down. Kid, it's too early for you to be happy. This god said that this god can't be killed. Jiang Xiu said with a smile. You're too naive. This god's punch isn't to kill you but to shatter you. Because your appearance is too ugly, it makes this god lose his appetite. What? Jiang Xiu smiled. He suddenly opened his mouth and sucked hard. Before the nether wheel in front of him could condense and take shape, it was sucked over by a strong suction force. It was compressed into fine soul threads, and was about to enter Jiang Xiu's mouth. Only then did the nether wheel realize that Jiang Xiu's real intention was to devour it. It was too late to resist and it was powerless to resist. After the first scream, it stopped abruptly. The whole person was swallowed by Jiang Xiu. As Jiang Xiu closed his mouth, the strong light also entered his mouth. Everything was settled. Was this a myth? In the myths, there were gods who could devour evil spirits. The scene in front of them was exactly the same as what was described in the myths. The evil spirit was devoured by Mr. Jiang? Jiang Xiu wiped his mouth unscrupulously, as if he had tasted something. In fact, he didn't feel anything at all. The god-devouring technique could even devour a real god, let alone a fake one. The spiritual power of the nether wheel was quickly absorbed by Jiang Xiu. A 1,000-year-old spirit body was indeed stronger than the previous two. It was as if he had eaten a 1,000-year-old ginseng. His body was much stronger, and the Protoss blood in his body surged again. Boom! It directly broke through another membrane and awakened another one. The number of divine patterns on his arm reached 30. Immediately after, his whole body shook and another one was awakened. 31 divine patterns appeared. He had awakened 2 in a row. Tonight his efforts weren't in vain. The trend of the first pattern of the divine pattern was becoming more and more obvious. It was a bit like an ancient character. According to Jiang Xiu's experience, this might be a spell. Spell sounds were the most powerful spells. In fact, the shorter the spell, the more powerful it was. It wasn't a curse, but a deterrent. Back then, the Shadow Emperor had looked back and said a word. And the millions of Void Divine Dragon army fell from the sky. No one survived. And his first divine inscription diagram was a total of 31 divine inscriptions. Yet Jiang Xiu had already reached that level. He could already imagine the scene of Jiang Xiu chanting out that incantation when the first divine inscription diagram appeared. Zhang Xiaoling was completely stunned. He looked at Jiang Xiu as if he was looking at a monster. The evil spirit that had killed 3 generations of his ancestors was swallowed by him just like that. It was so simple. From the beginning to the end of the battle, he was completely in a state of crushing his opponent. It was done easily. It was ridiculous that he had even tried to evacuate the crowd. He felt like a clown jumping up and down. Mr. Jiang won? Gu Shu was completely dumbfounded. His mind was blank. This level was simply like watching a myth. Chapter 116. Only then did everyone realize that the evil spirit had been killed by Jiang Xiao. Although the way he killed it was a little scary, there were many rumors of people swallowing monsters alive. Such people were usually gifted and had extraordinary life destinies. In ancient times, they were all conferred the title of Marquis, and some even had the honor of having an emperor artifact. This Mr. Jiang was indeed not an ordinary person. He really won. That evil spirit was killed by Mr. Jiang. That's great. The crisis was finally over. Gu Shu and the others went to welcome him. Gu Shu was very excited. He said, "Thank you, Mr. Jiang, for helping the people of Rivertown to get rid of this scourge." Yeah. Jiang Xiu's face was as calm as water. It seemed that he didn't feel much about getting rid of such a powerful evil spirit. It was as if he had done something very normal. "How is Miss Shu?" Jiang Xiu said. "In the forest." After that, he walked into the forest. Since the evil spirit controlling her had been killed, there wouldn't be much of a problem. The group followed Jiang Xiu into the forest and saw Xiao Xuetong lying next to a pile of extinguished matches. The matches were still smoking, and it seemed that they had just been extinguished. The underworld will use the power of Huatong to control Xiao Xuetong. Since he was dead, the fire was naturally extinguished. "Xiao Xiao! Xiao Xiao!" Wang Zhenbang and Lai Jie shouted a few times, but Xiao Xuetong didn't wake up. If it weren't for the rising and falling of her chest, they would have thought that she was dead. Zhang Xiaoling said softly, "She must have lost her soul. This is troublesome." Jiang Xiu came to Xiao Xuetong's side and squatted down. He pointed at her glabella and softly chanted a spell. A white light seemed to enter her glabella. Xiao Xuetong's cute nose emitted a heavy breathing sound. Then her eyelashes trembled slightly, and she opened her eyes slightly. "He's awake." "Xiao Xiao Xiao Xiao," Xiao Xuetong said in a daze. Where am I?" It's okay. When Jiang Xiu and Gu Shu saw that the matter was resolved, they didn't stay any longer. They didn't want to wait for these people to repay them. In fact, at their level, it was impossible for these people to repay them. Just as he exited the forest, a figure hurriedly chased after him. "Sir, please wait." The one chasing after him was Zhang Xiaoling. "What is it?" With a thud, Zhang Xiaoling knelt down on both knees and kowtowed to the ground. "Mister, please accept me as your disciple. I'm willing to follow you for the rest of my life and do whatever you want." Jiang Xiu's face was as calm as water. "You're not qualified." After that, he walked away unhurriedly, leaving Zhang Xiaoling kneeling on the ground with a dull look in his eyes. He didn't get up for a long time. "Mr. Jiang, I'll walk you out." Gu Shu didn't have any doubts at this time. He had to recruit an extraordinary person like Jiang Xiu into the Gu family. Even if his elder brother didn't appreciate him, he had to build a good relationship with Jiang Xiu no matter what. This man had amazing abilities. Okay. Jiang Xiu didn't refuse. He didn't have a car anyway. On the way, Gu Shu asked Jiang Xiu about the situation of his father in detail. He was ready to overturn the case for Jiang Xiu's father no matter how much pressure he had to face. He also had to restore his official position. This matter was very difficult. Today's society wasn't a society where one person's word was law. The whole of Jiangnan wasn't under his control. In fact, he also felt a lot of pressure in Jiangnan. The various forces were very complicated. Moreover, Jiang Yi did make a mistake in the past. What he did was very risky. But now he felt that it was all worth it. When he returned home, all the lights in the house were turned on. The air conditioner was also turned on. He saw Cheng Lingsu sleeping on the sofa. When she heard movement, she slightly opened her eyes. When she saw Jiang Xiu, she sat up and said vaguely, "You're back." Jiang Xiu frowned and said, "Why didn't you go back to the house to sleep?" Cheng Lingsu said, "I waited for you to come back." Jiang Xiu coldly snorted and mercilessly exposed Cheng Lingsu's lie. "The lights in the house are so bright. Even the pantry over there, the kitchen over there, and even the staircase lights in the corridor are all turned on. You're waiting for me. I think you're afraid." She was the only one in such a big villa. How could a 17-year-old girl not be afraid? Cheng Lingsu didn't say anything. It was obvious that Jiang Xiu was right. You're not allowed to turn on so many lights in the future. Okay. Jiang Xiu didn't bother with her anymore and directly went to his room. Cheng Lingsu turned off the lights and then went to the room next to Jiang Xiu's. Jiang Xiu didn't sleep. Instead, he meditated and refined the energy that he absorbed. There was another divine light in his body. However, this divine light was black. According to the underworld wheel, it should be called the North Emperor's divine light. Then the other two divine lights also had names. Furthermore, they would also have corresponding effects. He thought of the book that Cheng Lingsu bought for him and picked up the Protoss Evolution book to read. He hoped that he would be able to find records related to the divine light from these books. This book mentioned an analogy. In America, there was a type of dog called the Pit Bull Terrier. It was bred from American Staffordshire Terriers and Bulldogs. They continuously improved their genes and bred a type of ferocious dog with powerful killing power. The author said that the Protoss in the past also did something similar. They used genetics to breed Protoss with more fighting power. However, for some reason, the Protoss eventually died. This is new. Back in the immortal Martial continent, there had never been such considerations. The god race was extremely against interracial marriages. It was strictly forbidden within the immortal Martial continent. Because of this, it was unknown how many couples had been broken up. This was also the reason why the immortal Martial continent had many popular love stories. The god race had always believed that the purer and older the bloodline, the better. If there was a Protoss who combined the strengths of many families, it was simply unimaginable how powerful he would be. Death is inevitable. How could the genes of the Protoss be estimated by the genetics of mortals? This involved the principles of heaven and earth, and was infinitely profound. Currently, humans had not even explored a billionth of the mysteries of the world. They will be punished by the heavens. Only a few people could escape the restraints of the heavenly Tao. Unless an immortal emperor had this thought, who else could resist the heavenly punishment of the Protoss? Cheng Lingsu was actually not asleep. She was listening to the movements next door. She heard Jiang Xiu get up, and the sound of Jiang Xiu flipping the pages of a book. Many thoughts flashed through her mind, but in the end, they all turned into sadness. The next morning, Cheng Lingsu went out to buy breakfast for Jiang Xiu before he even woke up. Cheng Lingsu was different from usual. Jiang City's specialty breakfast, soy milk and fried dough sticks. Jiang Xiu was dismissive. He held the phone in his hand and said, "My mom called and told us to wait for her. They might have heard about what happened to your family." The Cheng clan's bankruptcy was such a big matter. Sooner or later, they would hear about it. Cheng Lingsu lowered her head and drank her soy milk. "You didn't say anything to my parents, right?" Cheng Lingsu said, "I didn't contact them." "What about your parents?" Cheng Lingsu pondered for a moment. She didn't call home yesterday, and they didn't call her either. She shook her head and said, "I'm not sure. I don't think they'll call." When the Cheng clan was rich, her father was fine, but her mother often mocked and ridiculed. Now that the Cheng clan was bankrupt, they were also in trouble. How could they have the face to stick close to them? Jiang Xiu said, "My parents don't know about me." Cheng Lingsu said, "I won't tell them." After breakfast, Jiang Xiu and Cheng Lingsu went out of the door to Yun Lake. Lin Yueling was at the fruit stall early in the morning. She was now the lady boss, but after waking up so early for so many years, she couldn't be idle. Seeing the youthful Cheng Lingsu beside Jiang Xiu, Lin Yueling's eyes lit up. She went up to her and warmly held her hands. "You're Susu, right? A girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood. The more she grows, the more beautiful she becomes." The Cheng family's beautiful sisters' appearances were indeed amazing. Cheng Lingsu was dressed in white. Standing on the street, the dirty street became fashionable and dreamy. She smiled sweetly. "Auntie Lin. Good girl, have you eaten breakfast?" Lin Yueling was very happy, but Jiang Xiu secretly frowned. In this life, the incident that destroyed his family didn't happen, so Lin Yueling's impression of Cheng Lingsu was quite good. This wasn't a good sign. "I've eaten." Lin Yueling quickly took out a red packet from her pocket and said, "I haven't seen you in so long. Auntie will give you a red packet." "Damn, it's quite thick. Look at the thickness, it's at least 1,000 yuan." Thank you. Cheng Lingsu didn't hesitate to accept it and held it tightly in her hands. Lin Yueling should know that her family was bankrupt and was worried that she didn't have money. Jiang Xiu shook his head. His mother was just too kind. She didn't know how evil this woman in front of him was. In his previous life, she ruined his family. Chapter 117. Lin Yueling called Cheng Lingsu into the fruit stall to talk. If it was in the past, Cheng Lingsu would never step foot into a place like this, but now she didn't even frown, and even had a smile on her face. The sun was very hot, and after the sun came out, Cheng Lingsu's forehead and nose were covered in fine sweat. Lin Yueling didn't know what to say to her, and Jiang Xiu wasn't interested in knowing anyway. Cheng Lingsu's face darkened, and she guessed that they were talking about her family's bankruptcy. Her family's bankruptcy was indeed a big blow to her. The more money a person had, the more superior they felt, but now the psychological gap was even bigger. Just look at Sun Xiaohong, and it was obvious that she couldn't live anymore. On the other hand, Cheng Lingran was calm and indifferent, but there were very few women like her who didn't care about money. She was a bit aloof and spiritual. As for Cheng Lingsu, she was between her mother and sister. Lin Yueling went to pick the biggest apple, planning to wash it and give it to Cheng Lingsu to eat. Jiang Xiu looked at her and frowned, saying coldly, "Are you waiting for my mom to tell you off?" Cheng Lingsu finally came out of the sad mood of bankruptcy, and hurriedly said, "Auntie, I'll do it myself." She quickly snatched the apple from Lin Yueling's hands and ran outside to wash it. When she passed by Jiang Xiu, she even asked, "Do you want it?" Jiang Xiu coldly snorted. "Stinking brat, you've grown a temper, treating Su Su like this." Lin Yueling couldn't help but widen her eyes. Her silly son was actually so impressive in front of Su Su, this beautiful fiancé. This really surprised her. "Su Su, next time you don't need to pay attention to him. If he dares to bully you in the future, come find Auntie. Auntie will support you." Cheng Lingsu faintly smiled. In Lin Yueling's memory, Cheng Lingsu's personality wasn't like this. Compared to her sister, she was colder and more individualistic. She sighed in her heart. She was experienced, and when her family suffered a great change, her personality also underwent a great change. As an experienced person, she sympathized with Cheng Lingsu. "It's okay." Lin Yueling comforted her. She didn't want to mention it, but she couldn't bear to see Cheng Lingsu like this, so she quietly said, "Auntie will tell you a secret. Actually, my family is very rich. Do you see this street? They all belong to our family, and the monthly rent is over 1,000,000 yuan. You don't have to worry about living a hard life after you marry into our family." Cheng Lingsu was still smiling faintly, but there was a hint of awkwardness under her smile. Not to mention whether she was willing to marry him or not. Would Jiang Xiu marry her? "What, you don't believe me?" Cheng Lingsu said. "I do. Of course I believe what Auntie said. Your son is Mr. Jiang, and even the entire Wang family has been swallowed by him. Just the super-large commercial and residential project in Wanjiguang City alone is worth more than 2 billion yuan. Buying a street in the suburbs is nothing. Then why are you still unhappy?" Cheng Lingsu smiled and said, "No. Are you worried about your parents? The Cheng family's bankruptcy should have hit them the hardest." When Lin Yueling mentioned these two people, the kindness on her face disappeared and was replaced by coldness. Lin Yueling treated Cheng Lingsu as a child. In fact, Cheng Lingsu was too young at that time, so she couldn't be blamed. However, Lin Yueling hated Cheng Hanlin and his wife to the bone. It was good enough that she didn't hit them when they were down, let alone offer money to help the couple. No. However, after the incident, Jiang Yi was stunned. He was in a trance for the whole day. Although he was full of hatred, the Cheng clan could be said to have traded his career for it. To some extent, the better the Cheng clan developed, the more worthwhile his sacrifice would be. When Jiang Xiu and Cheng Lingsu got married, what he did at that time would be a little more meaningful. But now that the Cheng clan was ruined, everything he did at that time was in vain. Don't think too much. Everything will pass. At that time, he had suffered much more than Cheng Lingsu. He didn't even have food to eat and suffered all the hypocrisy of the world. "Mrs. Yueling, give me some pears." Cheng Lingsu walked over and asked, "Which kind do you want?" That person was an acquaintance. Since Jiang Xiu bought this street, all the tenants on the street would come here to buy fruit, unless the end of the street was too far away. This kind. Cheng Lingsu picked up the bag and operated it like a professional. She was dressed very casually today, and was not as particular as before. However, it was a little too provocative. A pair of snow-white slender legs were exposed generously. The shape of her legs was perfect and flawless. Under the sunlight, they shone like crystal jade. Jiang Xiu couldn't help but look at her beautiful legs. He found that not only were Cheng Lingsu's legs beautiful, but her beautiful feet were also flawless. Wearing sandals, they were snow-white and pink. Her toes were like blooming petals. What a good girl. She enjoyed the riches of the world, and could also bear the hardships of the world. Lin Yueling was amazed by this girl's adaptability and transformation. "Mom, you can't just look at the surface of things." Lin Yueling couldn't help but smile. "You're lecturing your mom. You've grown up. Is it so great to be the top scorer in the exam? By the way, have you considered filling in the application form in the next 2 days?" Jiang Yi and his wife had discussed this matter for a long time. They were very against Jiang Xiu going to the capital. After all, they had experienced those things. They were also worried that Jiang Xiu would have something to do with the other side. However, their son was the top scorer in the college entrance examination. He could go to the capital university and the Hua Nation University. There was no reason for him not to choose these two universities. They also thought of some excuses to let Jiang Xiu study in Shanghai University. After all, Shanghai University was also a first-class university, and was adjacent to Jiangnan. Of course, Jiangnan University wasn't bad either. However, as they waited and waited, Jiang Xiu didn't mention the application. He was more patient than them. In the end, she still had to say it. If it's not the capital university, then it's the Hua Nation University. Jiang Xiu understood his parents' concerns. Actually, Shanghai University and Jiangnan University are not bad. It's closer to home. It's convenient for us to visit you. As expected, the meat was coming. Cheng Lingsu took the money and went back into the shop. She didn't dare to stand in front of the fan to block the wind. She tilted her head and listened. She seemed to have heard her aunt objecting to Jiang Xiu going to the capital university. "Mom, I've never heard of it. Who doesn't go to the capital university and the Hua Nation University?" Lin Yueling was also very conflicted. On one hand, she didn't want Jiang Xiu to have anything to do with them in the capital. On the other hand, the two universities in the capital were indeed better. She didn't want to delay her son's future. At this moment, the phone in Cheng Lingsu's bag rang. She took out her phone and saw that it was her mother. "Hello, Mom." Sun Xiaohong was very humble. "Come to the street corner. We can't borrow money here. Your dad wants to go back to his hometown and borrow some money from his relatives. He wants to start a small business. You should come along." Chen Hanlin's hometown was in Ninghai City, north of Jiangnan. "Mom, why don't I not go?" Sun Xiaohong said angrily. "Would you rather stand in front of a fruit stall and sell fruits?" It turned out that Sun Xiaohong had already seen it from afar. "Oh, okay then." After hanging up the phone, Cheng Lingsu said to Lin Yueling, "Auntie, my parents are going back to Ninghai City. They want me to accompany them. Then, I'll leave first." Lin Yueling nodded and turned to Jiang Xiu. "Ninghai is quite far away. Minor repairs. You can accompany Su Su and take care of her." "I'll accompany her." Jiang Xiu felt depressed in his heart. Instead of wasting this time, he might as well spend it on cultivation. However, Lin Yueling's eyes glared at him fiercely, leaving no room for doubt. He had no choice but to say, "Okay." Seeing Jiang Xiu coming over with her daughter, Sun Xiaohong's face was expressionless. In the past, she despised Jiang Xiu. Now she detested and even hated him. She felt that Jiang Xiu was a jinx who brought bad luck to the Cheng family. Cheng Hanlin's attitude was slightly better. Minor repairs too. Okay. In fact, he was not very willing to let Jiang Xiu go with him. His family was in dire straits. It was really embarrassing to bring along a poor son-in-law. However, since Jiang Xiu was willing to accompany them, It was also a kind gesture. He could not refuse. When sending Cheng Ling ran off, Jiang Xiu was generous in all aspects. However, he treated Cheng Hanlin and his wife coldly. He did not express his attitude from beginning to end. He allowed the other two to buy 4 long-distance bus tickets to Ninghai City. Moreover, the tickets were hard seats. It would take 3 to 4 hours by car. Will they lend us money? Sun Xiaohong asked worriedly. Yes. Cheng Hanlin's tone was very firm. He had a few cousins. After he became rich, he sponsored them and also let them start a real estate company. It was a small business, but its assets were more than 10 million yuan. He felt that it was not a big problem to borrow some money from them. Chapter 118. Jiang Xiu was no stranger to the bus that set off from Jiangqing to Ninghai City. In his previous life, in order to win back Cheng Lingsu, he had once anxiously gone to Ninghai to look for her with his last glimmer of hope. Jiang Xiu still remembered that it was the end of the year. The weather was very cold, and it was snowing heavily. He had said the words that came from the bottom of his heart to Cheng Lingsu. He had thought about these words 100 or 1,000 times on the way here, but in the end, Cheng Lingsu had still turned around and left him heartlessly. Thinking of this, Jiang Xiu felt a strange emotion in his heart. His gaze towards Cheng Lingsu became colder. The current Cheng Lingsu was still different from before. Although her facial features were exquisite, she was still immature at the age of 17. She didn't know what Jiang Xiu was thinking. That cold gaze might have touched a sore spot in his heart. She thought that it was caused by Jiang Xiu being together with his parents. Little did she know that it was something she had done in her previous life. She pursed her red lips and said, "Are you thirsty? Here's some water." Jiang Xiu reached out to take it. Just as he was about to twist it open, he realized that it had already loosened. He said, "Are your parents going back to borrow money this time?" Cheng Lingsu said, "I think so." Jiang Xiu said, "Do you think they'll be able to borrow money?" Cheng Lingsu realized that Jiang Xiu's gaze was malicious. Her heart skipped a beat, and she couldn't help but say, You can't be thinking of." Jiang Xiu, let them go. They're already very miserable. My father has aged so quickly, and my mother's hair has turned white. Even if they had offended you in the past, they've already paid back what they owed. If you have to torture someone to vent your anger, then torture me. Jiang Xiu said, "You misunderstood. What I mean is, will anyone be willing to lend them money?" Cheng Lingsu was stunned. The world was cold. Her father had been in the business world for so many years and had many friends. However, when the Cheng clan was in trouble, no one in Jiangqing was willing to lend him money. She wasn't sure if anyone would be willing to lend them money when they returned to their hometown, but she still said, "Definitely. My father is talented in business. If not, everyone has confidence in him." Jiang Xiu said, "I hope so." After Cheng Lingsu and company arrived in Ninghai City, they went straight to his cousin's company. "Come, let's find Wu Jun first." Wu Jun used to have the best relationship with him. After he became successful, Wu Jun had also given him the most support. Over the years, Wu Jun had also developed the best. His assets were around 20 to 30 million yuan, or around 50 million yuan. Even in Ninghai City, which was relatively economically backward, his assets were still considered good in the city. This was mainly because of Cheng Hanlin. Junjie Construction Companies. When they arrived at the company, they saw a Porsche sports car parked in the yard. A young man was standing next to the car. The car seemed to be newly bought, and a group of people were surrounding it. "Kid, you don't know how to do other things, but you're good at spending money. You spent more than 1 million on this lousy thing." A burly middle-aged man pointed at the young man and scolded him. He sounded like he was scolding him, but the smile on his face was more of a show-off. "Dad, this thing is called a Porsche. It's a high-end car. My cheap car is worth more than 1 million. If I don't do it, I'll lose face." The middle-aged man nodded and said, "That's true. We can't fail in this aspect. Businessmen talk about extravagance. People will look down on us if we're too shabby. However, you're good at making friends. Your friends are all rich. Dad has high hopes for you." While they were talking, a voice was heard. "Ajun, Wu Jun was a little surprised. These days, not many people called him Jun. They all called him Boss Wu. He had been a boss for many years. He turned around and saw Chung Hanlin and his family standing at the entrance of the company. Hanlin. After a moment of surprise, his eyes became a little unnatural. However, he quickly piled up a smile. Why are you here? He had heard about Chung Hanlin. In the past, Chung Hanlin had given him a lot of protection. It could be said that Chung Hanlin had helped his family. After learning that the Chung clan had gone bankrupt, he was most worried that Chung Hanlin would come looking for him. His worst fears had come true. Brat, quickly call uncle. Wu Jun's son Wu Xiaojun called out awkwardly. Seeing this expression, Chung Hanlin had a bad feeling in his heart. In the past, Wu Jun had come to him many times to pull in business. Basically, he had brought his son along. This kid always licked his lips, but now he was so cold and indifferent. Xiaojun, you have grown a lot taller. You are even taller than your uncle. It must have been hard on you. Come in. Wu Jun was still very polite on the surface. He invited Chung Hanlin and his family, including his son-in-law, into the office, brewed a pot of tea, and entertained them well. He knew Chung Hanlin and his family, but he didn't know Jiang Xiao. Oh, this is Sun Xiaohong rushed to say. My friend's son. He's here to help. Chung Lingsu lowered her head sadly again. She had already fallen to this point, but she still didn't want to say Jiang Xiao's identity. Chung Lingsu was a little disgusted by her mother's behavior. It turned out that this was very annoying. She couldn't help but look at Jiang Xiao. He still looked indifferent, as if he didn't care about this at all. It turned out that he used to look at me like this. Chung Hanlin said. He is Jiang Xiao, Jiang Yi's son. After saying this, Wu Jun's face changed. Jiang Yi? Jiang Xiao's gaze swept over indifferently. You know my dad? Wu Jun looked at Jiang Xiao again. Before, he only thought that this youth's appearance was good, but now that he looked closer, Jiang Xiao's aura was very unique and mysterious. Especially those eyes. They were as deep as the abyss. In his mind, he couldn't reconcile him with that gentle yet intelligent man. I know him. I used to do things for your dad. You don't look like your parents. He had already awakened 31 mysteries of his Shen sigils, and his Protoss bloodline had also undergone 31 changes. His appearance had also changed a little. However, as a youth in his adolescence, his appearance had changed a lot, so it didn't attract much attention. Jiang Xiao said, maybe. Wu Jun sighed. The two men he looked up to in the past were high and mighty. He had seen Jiang Yi, who was on the verge of kneeling, go to jail, and Chung Hanlin, who he had to bow his head and bow to, go bankrupt. In contrast, he was doing very well. It was impossible for him not to be proud of himself. I'll arrange a banquet. Let's gather our brothers together. Okay. Wu Jun said. I have a lot of empty rooms here. I'll get someone to tidy them up. You guys must be tired from the ride, so you can take a nap first. It was just past the restaurant, so it was the perfect time to sleep in the summer. He had arranged everything well, but he didn't mention anything that should be mentioned. After everything was arranged, Wu Jun returned to his office alone. A voice called out, Uncle Wu. Wu Jun turned around and saw Jiang Xiao behind him. Oh, it's you. Do you need something from me? I'm going to sit in your office. Wu Jun nodded. He led Jiang Xiao into his office. His office was very large, but it had the taste of a nouveau riche. Some paintings were hung on the wall. The tables and chairs were all carved out of wood. There was also a large tea table in the middle. It seemed to be made of Phoebe, and it looked very heavy. Wu Jun casually spread out on his chair and said, What's the matter? Do you need something from me? He stretched out his hand and gestured for Jiang Xiao to sit down. Jiang Xiao sat down opposite him. I want to ask you something. What is it? Jiang Xiao said. Back then, were you very close to my dad and my father-in-law? He deliberately tried to get closer to Chung Hanlin. This was also Jiang Xiao's personal wisdom. Then you must know why my dad is in jail. Wu Jun's expression changed slightly. You don't know? Jiang Xiao shook his head. This is an adult scar. I can't ask. If I ask, it will only add to their pain. But I really want to know the reason. I want to ask Uncle Wu to explain it to me. Wu Jun said awkwardly. If your father and father-in-law don't say it, it's not convenient for me to reveal it. Jiang Xiu said. Uncle Wu, just do me a favor. It's been so long. I can't bring it into the coffin. Wu Jun thought for a moment and said, There's nothing that can't be said. Your father and father-in-law offended someone. This person is not someone your father can afford to offend. Your father was fine at that time, but your father-in-law was a businessman and couldn't handle it. Your father took a risk and did something against the law. As a result, he was caught and both of them faced the possibility of being imprisoned. One person in jail is better than two people in jail. In the end, your father took the blame. Jiang Xiu nodded. It was basically the same as the version he knew. Who is the person that we can't afford to offend? Wu Jun said. Your father's former political enemy, Tang Jingping, is now the secretary of Ninghai City's municipal committee. The Tang family is one of the 4 major families in Jiangnan. It's like a giant. We can't afford to offend him. Nephew, be obedient and forget this matter. Your parents and father-in-law don't want you to know because they don't want you to get involved. Jiang Xiu said, the Tang family. Chapter 119. Wu Jun sighed and said solemnly, Yes, it's the Tang family of Jiangnan. It's been more than 10 years, but this family has not declined. Instead, it's become stronger. He was reminding Jiang Xiu that his father couldn't beat them even when he was at his peak. Now that the Jiang family had nothing and the enemy had become stronger, they were even less of a match for them. In fact, the Tang family was completely different from the Wang family. Although they were both one of the 4 major families in Jiangnan, the Wang family was neither involved in the government nor the military. They were a martial arts family. To a certain extent, they were not powerful. The reason why they could be ranked as one of the 4 major families was that they had 200 years of history and accumulated connections. Although the Tang family was a family established after the founding of the country, it was because of this that they were powerful enough. Their foothold was completely based on the power of the government. Jiang Xiu asked, How did Tang Jingping get hold of my father's weakness back then? This. Wu Jun's expression changed slightly. He quickly shook his head and said, I don't know. I was just an insignificant person back then. I didn't know much. If you want to know, ask your father yourself. Jiang Xiu said. Uncle Wu, you don't want to say? I really don't know. What happened back then couldn't have been so simple. If his father was willing to take responsibility for what happened back then there was no reason for him to hate the Cheng family so much. Because both sides were forced to make the decision back then, they couldn't blame the Cheng family. Wu Jun in front of him should know some inside information. He just didn't want to be a busybody. However, Jiang Xiu had already made preparations before he came. Jiang Xiu said, Uncle Wu, I heard that there are problems with the quality of the new art garden project contracted by Junjie Construction. The situation is quite serious. Wu Jun's expression changed instantly. You can't talk nonsense. This matter was extremely confidential. Only he and a few people in the company knew about it. How did this young man, who was younger than his son, know about it? His heart began to turn cold. Jiang Xiu said, Uncle Wu knows whether I'm telling the truth or not. We're old friends, so naturally, he won't tell anyone about this. But I want to know, how did Tang Jingping get hold of my father's weakness? Wu Jun said, All right, since you want to know so much, I'll tell you. Don't regret it. Jiang Xiu smiled. Wu Jun lowered his voice and said, The person who handed the evidence of your father's crimes to Tang Jingping was your father-in-law, Cheng Hanlin. Jiang Xiu nodded, then stood up and said, Sorry to disturb you. Before he got a definite answer, he had already guessed most of it. The Tang family was so powerful in Jiangnan. If Cheng Hanlin hadn't surrendered to Tang Jingping would never have let the Cheng clan go, and the Cheng clan would never have been able to develop. Wu Jun waited for Jiang Xiu to leave, then sighed and said, There's no need to dwell on the past. The only one who suffers is yourself. Only when you truly let go will your path be wider. After saying that, he was a little stunned. He actually said something so philosophical about life. It seemed that hanging a few calligraphy and paintings in the office was still a little useful. When Jiang Xiu returned to his room, Cheng Lingsu opened the door and said, "I went to knock on your door just now, but you weren't there. Where did you go?" "I was just walking around." "What's the matter?" Cheng Lingsu said. "My parents said that it's not appropriate for us to go to the banquet later, so they told us to make our own arrangements. Just now, Brother Xiaojun said that he has a friend gathering and asked if we wanted to go. I wanted to ask for your opinion. If you go, we'll go together. If not, I won't go alone." Jiang Xiu said. Oh. Jiang Xiu had never been interested in this kind of gathering that he didn't know. However, since they were guests, he couldn't stay in his room and cultivate alone. "It's dinner anyway. It's okay to go. If it's not fun, come back first." Cheng Lingsu responded. "Then I'll let Brother Xiaojun know." On the way to the gathering, Wu Xiaojun introduced. There are several big families in Ninghai City: the Song family, the Ren family, the Qian family, the Sun family, the Tang family. Among these families, of course, the Tang family and the Lin family are the most powerful. Old Master Tang has been in charge of Ninghai City for many years, and Tang Mingji is the #1 young master in Ninghai City. Wu Xiaojun glanced at the beautiful Cheng Lingsu and said, "Originally, Su Su could stand shoulder to shoulder with them. But there's me. Now I've finally squeezed into their circle. If there's a gathering or something, they can invite me." Adults wanted to squeeze into the upper-class circle, but so did the younger generation. Wu Xiaojun's family background was average, so he could barely enter the circle. However, he belonged to the younger generation. His father had also spent a lot of money to buy him a Porsche. Cheng Lingsu was a little nervous when she heard this. "It's such a high-end gathering. Will it be bad for you to take us there?" Wu Xiaojun said. "It's okay. Your brother Xiaojun is a big shot now. It's not a big deal to bring a few friends." Cheng Lingsu still didn't think it was a good idea. Second Miss Cheng used to be a member of that circle. She knew the rules the best. Those rich young masters were very realistic. They socialized with you because of your status, background, and connections. They helped each other to form a circle. If you, a person without any benefits, entered the circle, they would be the most repulsed. They would mercilessly kick you out. She was a living example. Her best friend of 3 years, Ouyang Qian, had broken up with Li Dan just like that. "How about we don't go? We'll find a place to have a meal." Wu Xiaojun was a little anxious. "How can we do that? I've already promised my dad." Cheng Lingsu looked at Jiang Xiu. She wanted to hear his opinion. However, when she saw him, she laughed in her heart. In Jiangnan, was there any place that Mr. Jiang couldn't go? She said, "Okay then." The car stopped in front of a villa. There were a lot of luxury cars: Ferraris, Bentleys, Lamborghinis, Maseratis, and Wu Xiaojun's Porsche. It was a little embarrassing to park there. "We're here." The party was held in a private villa. In recent years, some people had become rich and learned how to enjoy life. The villa was comparable to a 5-star hotel. There was even a swimming pool in the villa. It was like a movie party in Hong Kong. There was even a group of girls wearing bikinis running around the pool. The young masters were also wearing swimsuits. The sun had just set, and it was a good time to play. They were holding all kinds of cocktails and red wine in their hands and chatting with each other. It was as if there was a party going on. One of the young men with oily hair and a powdered face said, "Did your family see Mr. Jiang when they went to Jiangqing this time?" The young man with one leg hanging in the pool said, "It's not that easy to see Mr. Jiang. Those who went to Jiangqing to see Mr. Jiang were basically rejected. My family's situation is still all right. Wang Xintong saw my dad and chatted for about half an hour." The person beside him asked, "The princess of the Wang family?" The young man nodded. "Yes, that's her." A bikini girl came out of the water and said, "I heard that she's very beautiful. How beautiful is she to be able to move Mr. Jiang's heart?" The young man said, "Wang Xintong's beauty is indeed top-notch. However, Mr. Jiang didn't fall for her because of her beauty. It's because of the 200-year-old Wang family behind her and her IQ, which has been passed down for 200 years. In the future, this woman will play a very important role in Jiangnan." The young man with oily hair and a powdered face said, As long as the Wang family and Mr. Jiang don't fall, Wang Xintong won't fall either. She has double insurance. This woman is really scary. The young man drank the cocktail in his hand in one gulp. Mr. Jiang is very generous. If he can suppress the Wang family, then I'm afraid that the other forces in Jiangnan will be affected. Many places will have to be reshuffled. As he spoke, Wu Xiaojun had already excitedly brought Jiang Xiu and Cheng Lingsu in. He hadn't been to this kind of event often, so he still felt that it was very fresh and exciting. Young Master Song. Wu Xiaojun saw the young man holding the cocktail, and excitedly went over to greet him. The young man raised his chin at him as a response and complained, "Why are you so late?" Young Master Song's intimate attitude made Wu Xiaojun feel excited again. "I waited for two friends, so I was a bit late." Young Master Song looked over and saw Jiang Xiu and Cheng Lingsu. When he saw Cheng Lingsu, he was stunned. He obviously didn't expect to be shocked by her beauty. "Who are you?" Wu Xiaojun said awkwardly, "Relatives. My family used to be very good. However, there's been some problems recently." The second daughter of the Cheng clan. Program was not only famous in Jiangcheng, but also in the entire Jiangnan province. They naturally heard about the bankruptcy of several real estate groups. Young Master Song revealed a look of realization. "Didn't you see that everyone here is in swimsuits? Bring them in and change into bikinis before coming out." Chapter 120. Everyone present looked at Cheng Lingsu with schadenfreude. They really wanted to see how the rich young lady of the past was down and out now that she had nothing. Her beautiful and moving appearance aroused the desire of the rich young men present to destroy her. They wanted to pull down her arrogance layer by layer, and then completely destroy it. Cheng Lingsu had experienced this kind of trick before. However, it was only because she was in the same group as the spokesperson. Now that it was her, she smiled slightly and said, "I came with Brother Xiaojun to watch the fun. I don't plan on getting into the water. Besides, I don't know how to swim." Young Master Song said, "It's fine if you don't want to get into the water. Patty should look like Patty. You still have to change into a bikini." Normally, Cheng Lingsu wasn't such a conservative person. Now that it was summer, she was wearing cool clothes. However, being forced to change into a bikini and then having the boys stare at her figure, any girl would feel uncomfortable and feel like she was being molested. Cheng Lingsu said, "If that's the case, then I won't disturb everyone's mood. Brother Xiaojun, you guys have fun. I'll be leaving first." Young Master Song's face turned cold. "Second Miss Cheng, are you not giving me face?" Rich young masters were always so domineering and overbearing. Otherwise, how could they show off their ability? If he didn't let you go, you really couldn't leave. Cheng Lingsu's face became a bit ugly. She was too familiar with their tricks. If she didn't agree, not only would she be dealt with, her family's business would also be affected. This was how the second-generation circle played. However, her Cheng family was poor now. What was there to be afraid of? She opened her mouth and said, "Young Master Song, are you trying to make things difficult for others?" Young Master Song was even more embarrassed. "Second Miss Cheng, are you looking down on us?" A bikini girl in the pool said. She was around 20 years old and dyed her hair brown. She wasn't very beautiful, but she was a rich girl after all and took good care of herself. She must have some background to be able to speak here. Some people like to show off their bodies. They felt that it would be a pity if they didn't show off their bodies. They couldn't wait for boys to stare at them. However, some girls just didn't like it. They only showed it to their men. Everyone had different views. However, her words implied that Cheng Lingsu viewed them as licentious. There were suspicions that he was trying to kill her. In fact, many men liked to invite young models to their gatherings. They would wear bikinis or even more revealing clothes to play with them. There was no doubt that they would play such a role. Cheng Lingsu said, "That's not what I meant. Please help yourselves." Cheng Lingsu turned around and was about to leave, but she was grabbed by a steel-like hand and couldn't move. Jiang Xiu said, "Go and change into a bikini. Pick one with the least amount of fabric and the most revealing." Cheng Lingsu looked at Jiang Xiu in disbelief. Her charming face became deathly pale. Why? At this moment, Cheng Lingsu felt that her world had collapsed. She still had a trace of hope for Jiang Xiu, because he had liked her since they were young. However, at this moment, she was in despair. If Jiang Xiu still liked her, no matter how much he hated her, he wouldn't let the woman he liked wear bikinis in front of so many people, and let these men see her thoroughly. Jiang Xiu said indifferently. Do you want this sovereign to say it again? Cheng Lingsu's eyes reddened. She bit her red lips and said, torturing me will make you feel better. Okay, I'll change. Where are the clothes? Where is the changing room? Immediately, seeing that Cheng Lingsu agreed, whistles came from the swimming pool. The whistles were filled with teasing, causing Cheng Lingsu's body to slightly tremble. Young Master Song grinned and pointed in the direction of the changing room. Then he said to Jiang Xiu, Brat, hit the road. Wu Xiaojun looked at Jiang Xiu with a bit of astonishment. His father had told him that Cheng Lingsu and Jiang Xiu had an engagement when they were young. This brat was really something. In order to climb up the social ladder, he was even willing to cheat his own fiancée. Not long after, Cheng Lingsu wore a black bikini swimsuit. Her exquisite curves were exposed. Under the setting sun, her skin was delicate and white. The moment she came out, the entire swimming pool quieted down. No matter if it was a man or a woman, they all stared at her. Even with Jiang Xiu's picky sunshine, he couldn't help but admit that Cheng Lingsu's figure was extremely good. Her waist was very thin, and the curves of her waist and butt were even more perfect. However, at this time, her eyes were filled with tears. She stubbornly held them in her eyes, adding a touch of delicate and pitiful feeling. In her eyes, there was only Jiang Xiu. She asked, Now are you satisfied? Jiang Xiu raised his mouth and smiled. There was an indescribable evil charm. With such a good figure, you should let everyone see. Cheng Lingsu's body trembled. You bastard. The Jiang Xiu in front of her was really too strange. She couldn't see any trace of his childhood. The current him was a devil that wanted to destroy her. Young Master Song felt that it was a pity. In this day and age, those with good looks didn't have good figures, those with good figures didn't have good looks, and those with good figures didn't have good looks. It was a pity that this second Miss Cheng's family was bankrupt. Otherwise, he might have been tempted. In fact, he was a bit tempted now. What's so lively about? Suddenly, a voice sounded. Following this voice, two young men walked in. The leader was a man in his 20s. He was a bit older than them. He wore glasses and had an extraordinary aura. Young Master Tang. Young Master Tang. Everyone in the pool was a little excited. The person who came was the famous first young master of Ninghai City, Tang Mingji. Jiang Xiu looked over curiously. If he guessed correctly, he was Tang Jingping's son. His gaze landed on Cheng Lingsu as well. This looks unfamiliar to me. How could Wu Xiaojun miss such a good opportunity to talk to Tang Mingji? Young Master Tang, this is a distant relative of mine. Cheng Lingsu has been in Jiangqing for many years. She occasionally comes to play today. She's beautiful. Tang Mingji's gaze wandered over Cheng Lingsu's body. Jiang Xiu could see that Cheng Lingsu had goosebumps all over her body. I'm Tang Mingji. He graciously reached out his hand. Cheng Lingsu had no choice but to reach out her hand. Cheng Lingsu. Unexpectedly, Tang Mingji pulled Cheng Lingsu's hand and refused to let go. Cheng Lingsu turned pale with fright and let out a scream. Her delicate body was pulled into the pool by him, and she fell in with a splash. Suddenly, the pool was filled with cheers. Cough, cough, cough. Cheng Lingsu popped her head out of the water and kept coughing. She knew how to swim, but she was not a good swimmer. Just now it was too sudden and she choked badly. Cheng Lingsu, right? Not bad. Tang Mingji had a playful smile on his face. Cheng Lingsu's eyes were red. She didn't know if it was because she was choking on water or because she was crying, but it looked like she was crying. The tears in her eyes mixed with the water on her face. At this moment, Cheng Lingsu felt wronged, but she could only grit her teeth and swallow it down. However, her tears were about to flow out. Tisk, tisk, Tang Mingji said. Your skin is so good really. As he spoke, he saw the crowd around him suddenly widen their eyes in shock and disbelief as they looked behind him. He turned his head and saw someone raise a leg and kick him hard in the butt, sending him flying. Oh my God. The girls in the pool all covered their mouths. F***ck. The boys could not help but exclaim. Does this kid know who that is? Haining City's #1 young master, Tang Mingji. He is one of the few young masters in the entire Jiangnan circle. He is the direct descendant of the Tang family, one of the 4 big families in Jiangnan. You dare to kick him? Wu Xiaojun was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. My dear brother, you are my ancestor. You really dare to kick him? You are in big trouble. These young masters had a big problem. They could bully you, but when something happened to them, they would be angrier than anyone else. They would definitely return the favor 10-fold, or even 100-fold. With a splash, Tang Mingji fell into the water. He was a good swimmer, but when he was suddenly kicked into the water, he choked quite a bit. His entire body was burning with anger. He was as angry as a lion. He wanted to make the person who kicked him into the water suffer a fate worse than death. But just as he was about to pop his head out, a hand grabbed his hair roughly and pressed him into the water. He struggled with all his might, his arms flapping with all his might. He was almost out of breath, but the strength of that hand was too strong. It was like an iron clamp. He kicked young Master Tang into the water, and even pressed him into the water. This kid is really asking for it. Just wait for young Master Tang's revenge. Splash, splash. Young Master Tang slapped the water with all his might. The pool was not deep. When he stood in, he could still pop his head out. But he was still pressed into the water. Time passed by slowly. 20 seconds. 30 seconds. Everyone slowly became nervous. This was a little too much. Something bad was going to happen. 40 seconds. Young Master Tang, who was underwater, stopped moving after struggling with all his might. Don't tell me he drowned. The onlookers could not help but stand up. Their faces started to turn pale. They saw young Master Tang float out of the water, face down motionless. He was like a floating corpse. Chapter 121. Silence. Dead silence. It was as if the air had frozen. Everyone present felt a chill in their bones. They stared nervously at Tang Jiming, who was floating motionlessly in the water. Someone reacted and shouted, "Quick, go into the water and take a look." Several people jumped into the water and hurriedly rescued Tang Jiming to the side of the pool. Master Tang. Master Tang. Tang Jiming did not respond even after they called him a few times. The afterglow of the setting sun gradually disappeared, and the surface of the pool returned to tranquility. There were only occasional ripples on the water, which made the afterglow of the setting sun shine. The leaves on the side of the pool swayed gently. Dead, dead. Although they had already realized it, when it really happened, everyone present felt their hearts palpitate and suffocated. Tang Jiming was dead. Everyone looked at Jiang Xiao. This person was too cruel. He had just pulled his woman into the water, but he directly pressed him into the water and drowned him. Did he know who this person was? Cheng Lingsu was also stunned on the spot. You were the one who humiliated me. You were also the one who saw me being humiliated. You were both a god and a devil. What on earth were you thinking? Jiang Xiao, who was on the side, looked indifferent, as if everything that had happened had nothing to do with him. Change your clothes. Let's go. Cheng Lingsu came back to her senses. Her face was a little pale as she walked quickly into the changing room. She hurriedly changed her clothes and came back without taking a shower. You look better in a swimsuit. Cheng Lingsu was so scared that her face turned pale. Jiang Xiao was still in the mood to joke. Are we going to let them go just like that? Are you going to stop him? Didn't you see how cruel he was? Master Tang was just teasing his woman, and he was pressed into the water and drowned. Call the police. This is going to be a big problem. The first young master of Ninghai City, who could make the city tremble with a stomp of his feet, was killed. Tang Shu would go crazy if he knew. That was his only son, his only son. Master Song said, Xiao Jun, who is that person? We have to call the police quickly. Don't let him escape. Wu Xiaojun was dumbfounded. He stuttered. I'm not familiar with him. Just like you guys, this is the first time I've met him. I only know that his name is Jiang Xiao and that he's from Jiang City. Cheng Lingsu followed behind Jiang Xiao. Her mind was in a mess. Why? You forced me to change into a swimsuit, and let those people belittle me. But when young Master Tang bullied me, you killed him. Why? Don't you hate me and want to destroy me? Jiang Xiu stopped and turned to look at Cheng Lingsu. At this time, her hair was still wet and her face was pale, but it didn't affect her beautiful face. Her frightened expression made her look like a frightened deer, making people want to protect her. Why do you think? Cheng Lingsu asked. Are you conflicted? You want to forgive me, but you can't get past yourself? So you torture me, but you don't allow others to bully me. Jiang Xiu didn't answer. He admitted that Cheng Lingsu was partly right, but only partly. You're too impulsive. You should have taught him a lesson. You shouldn't have killed him, Jiang Xiu said. Oh, Cheng Lingsu said. You're very powerful now. Everyone calls you Mr. Jiang, but the Tang family is not to be trifled with. They're completely different from the Wang family. The Wang family is just an ancient family that relies on martial arts. You used martial arts to overcome them, so you succeeded. In fact, the Wang family doesn't have any background, but the Tang family is different. They're a family of officials. They'll use modern laws to deal with you. Jiang Xiu said so? Cheng Lingsu said. You're not afraid, and they can't catch you. But have you ever thought about uncle and auntie? You're their only son. If something happens to you and you run away, what will happen to them? Jiang Xiu smiled and continued to walk forward. But in his heart he thought, you'll never know what kind of existence I am. The law is just a product of the upper class to restrain the lower class. Jiang Xiu. Cheng Lingsu jogged a few steps to catch up. Her beautiful eyebrows were tightly knitted. She wanted to say something, but Jiang Xiu didn't seem to be interested in listening anymore. Tang Zhengping was a man in his 50s. He was plump and had a smile on his face. He was eating with someone in a hotel and receiving compliments from a table full of people. It hasn't been decided yet, but it should be decided that he's going to be a deputy governor. The Tang family is such a big mountain. Even if he's going to be a deputy governor, he won't be able to escape. Here, let's first congratulate Tang Xu. It should be Deputy Governor Tang's promotion. Tang Zhengping raised his wine glass proudly. Just as he was about to drink, a phone call came in. Hello. Tang Xu, there's very bad news. Young Master Tang was killed in the Song family's villa. The person speaking was a man in his 40s. He was Ling Dongcheng, the head of the Ninghai police station. It was related to Tang Xu's only son, so he had to personally take care of this case. At this time he was beside the body, surrounded by policemen. He was taking notes for every young master present. What? The wine glass in his hand fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. The red wine spilled all over the floor. Tang Zhengping stood up from his seat. The smile on his face turned pale. He was drowned in the water. Tang Zhengping felt dizzy and almost fell to the ground. He was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. Jiming, you're muddle-headed. Why don't you cherish yourself? Do you know how precious you are? How can you fight with those people? He only had one son, and he was gone just like that. Tang Xu, take care of yourself. Tang Zhengping seemed to have aged all of a sudden. He said angrily, Who is it? Which bastard dared to touch my son? From Jiang City. A man named Jiang Xiao. He's not even 20 years old. Tang Zhengping said, Arrest him. Arrest him. Yes, we've set up defenses on all major roads. If we see the murderer, we'll arrest him immediately. Ling Dongqing paused and said, We've also sent people to Jiang City. We'll keep an eye on his parents. After killing someone, he must contact his family if he wanted to escape. Excuse me, is this Jiang Xiu's home? In front of the fruit stall, 2 uniformed policemen came. They seemed to be in a hurry. Lin Yueling and Jiang Yi were both there. They were discussing the matter of Jiang Xiu going to school. In the end, they decided not to let Jiang Xiu go to the capital. Even if the child didn't agree, they had to be domineering. Yes, officer. What's the matter? Lin Yueling asked in surprise. Anyone who saw the police coming would have a bad first impression. Jiang Yi had been in prison, so he was even more afraid of the police. How are you related to Jiang Xiu? Lin Yueling said. We're his parents. When the policeman heard this, his face darkened. Your son committed a crime. He killed someone. Come back to Ninghai with us and cooperate with us to assist in the investigation. What? Lin Yueling and Jiang Yi both cried out involuntarily. How is that possible? My son is very obedient. He's also the top scorer of the college entrance examination in Jiangnan. How could he kill someone? Lin Yueling's face turned pale, and she hurriedly explained. That's the truth. There are more than 20 witnesses at the scene. They all saw the process of him committing the crime. Cooperate with us. Jiang Yi, who always didn't like to talk, said, Why would my son kill someone for no reason? The policeman said, One of his female companions was pushed into the pool. He cruelly pressed the troublemaker into the water and drowned her. Ah! Lin Yueling's body swayed and she almost couldn't stand. She didn't believe that such a thing had happened, but when it came to the female companion, it should be Su Su. Her son probably couldn't bear to see Su Su being humiliated and made a mistake. Tears immediately fell. She only had one son. At this moment, she seemed to have returned to a moment more than 10 years ago. The policeman said, Your son is too bold. Do you know who he killed? It was the only son of Tang Jiming, the secretary of Ninghai City's municipal committee, Tang Shu. What, Tang Jingping's son? The couple looked at each other. They realized that this matter might not be as simple as it seemed. Does our son know what happened in the past? Lin Yueling asked. Jiang Yi said, He wants to avenge me? This silly son. Lin Yueling couldn't help but throw herself into Jiang Yi's arms and cry bitterly. Jiang Yi, what should we do? Think of a way to save minor repairs. He's our only son. Jiang Yi's expression was extremely solemn. He said, Things have come to this point. There's no other way. How about I make a call back? Lin Yueling raised her head and said, You want to call the Jiang family? Chapter 122. Jiang Yi's eyes flashed with pain. He avoided Lin Yueling's gaze and said, What else can we do? We only have one son. Are we going to let him go to jail like me? Lin Yueling said. But you, Jiang Yi said. I'm fine. Lin Yueling loved her son very much. She also loved Jiang Yi. She didn't want Jiang Yi to be humiliated. She said, Why don't I call him? 12 years ago, he was in jail and couldn't stop her from going to the capital and humiliating her. This time, he wouldn't let Lin Yueling do it again. He walked to the side and made a call that he had almost forgotten. When the call connected, his hands began to tremble. Hello, is this second brother? I'm Jiang Yi. There was silence on the other end of the phone for a while. A man's voice came through. You haven't called back in a long time. Jiang Yi said, It's been a long time. The man said, I thought you would never call back again. Jiang Yi said, Yes. Is the old master there? I want to talk to the old master. The man said, The old master instructed me to never answer your call. What's the matter? It's the same if you tell me. Jiang Yi pondered for a while. The muscles on his cheeks were trembling. He didn't expect the old master to be so heartless. According to Jiang Yi's personality, he would definitely hang up the phone. But not today. If he hung up the phone, Jiang Xiu would be finished. Second brother, I want to beg you to save my son. When he said this, Jiang Yi felt that he had used up all his strength. The man asked, What happened to your son? Jiang Yi said, He killed someone. He's a good child. He killed someone for me. He killed Tang Jingping's son. I don't want him to go to jail. The man said, You went to jail yourself and now your son is going to jail too. The bloody facts tell you how big of a mistake it was for you to step out of the house. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of Jiang Yi's mouth. Yes, I was wrong, second brother. I beg you, save my son. I only have one son. That person let out a long sigh. Sigh, if you knew this day would come, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. Jiang Yi didn't say anything, but his body was trembling. All right, I'll find a chance to talk to the old man. After that, the other party hung up. A cold beeping sound came from the phone. Lin Yueling, who was not far away, had been paying attention to Jiang Yi's expression. She felt very sad, but more than that, she was desperate. Jiang Yi didn't even have a chance to talk to the old man. But he still asked expectantly, "How is it?" Jiang Yi said. The old man refused to answer my call. Second brother said that he would find a suitable time to talk to the old man about this matter. After all, it's his biological grandson. He shouldn't leave him in the lurch. When he said this, his heart was bleeding. So what if it was his biological grandson? He was still his biological son. Back then, he said that he wouldn't save Jiang Yi, and he didn't save him. He watched as Jiang Yi went to jail and became a cripple for no reason. The police outside urged, "Are you done? Come with us." "Okay, let's go." Jiang Yi and his wife helplessly got into the police car. Lin Yueling asked, "Officer, can I ask where my son is now?" The police officer said, "You're asking us, we're the ones asking you. Pay attention to your phones and make sure it's connected. Your son is now on the run and may contact you at any time." On the run? Jiang Yi and Lin Yueling couldn't believe it. When they arrived at the Ninghai City police station, the people inside seemed to be at war. They were arresting Jiang Xiao. It was very strange. Jiang Xiao seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth. The two police officers interrogated Jiang Yi and his wife about all kinds of things related to Jiang Xiao. However, no matter how they looked at it, Jiang Xiao seemed like a good child, especially since he was the college entrance examination top scorer in Jiangnan this year. The door of the interrogation room opened, and Tang Jingping walked in from outside the interrogation room. His eyes, which were wearing glasses, were red, and he seemed to be in low spirits. Back then, he had caused Jiang Yi to go to jail. A good family had been torn apart, and he had brought them endless pain. However, no matter how painful it was not as painful as the loss of his son. Jiang Yi. He suddenly rushed forward like a furious lion. He no longer looked like a city book. He grabbed Jiang Yi's collar hard and lifted him up. "Where is your son? Where is he?" Jiang Yi said. "I don't know." It was the man in front of him who had ruined him. It had been 12 years, and everything seemed to have changed. He thought that he had broken away from that circle, but it turned out that he hadn't. "Calm down. Tang Shu, calm down." Several police officers came forward and pulled them apart. "Jiang Yi, do you think your son can escape after killing my son?" Tang Jingping said, "Impossible. The entire Ninghai city has been locked down. He can't escape even if he has wings." "I want your son to pay with his life," Lin Yueling shouted and said. "Your son was the one who molested Su Su first. Minor repairs were just to protect his fiancée. At most, it's an accidental murder. It's not enough to warrant the death penalty." Judging from the situation of the case, this was indeed the case. There were many eyewitnesses present. "After killing Jiming, your son still wants to live? Dream on." Tang Jingping gritted his teeth in hatred. "I will use all the power of the Tang family to bury him with his son." Jiang Yi and Lin Yueling's faces were as pale as paper. "What should we do?" When Tang Jingping sat across from them, Lin Yueling asked Jiang Yi worriedly. Jiang Yi said, "I'll make another call." The couple was here to assist in the investigation, so there was no restriction on their freedom of life. Jiang Yi walked aside and dialed the number again. "Hello, second brother? I'm Jiang Yi." The person on the other end of the phone said, "Didn't I tell you not to be anxious? You know the old man's temper. I have to find an appropriate time to mention this to him." How could Jiang Yi not be anxious when the fire was burning his eyebrows? Tang Jingping happens to be the secretary of Ninghai City's municipal committee. "My son's case happened here. Minor repairs may not bode well. Second brother, I beg you to save my son. He's also your nephew." The person on the other end of the phone said, "Haven't you already left the Jiang family? Have you severed your ties with the Jiang family? What are you trying to claim kinship now?" Jiang Yi said, "It was my fault back then. It was all my fault. Second brother, I beg you, please save minor repairs. I only have one son, I beg you." Jiang Yi had never lowered his head in his life, not even when he was in prison. But today he said all the words he didn't say in his previous life. The person said, "Third young master Jiang used to be so high-spirited, but now he's become like this. We're brothers. I'll talk to the old man about this. but whether it succeeds or not depends on your son's luck. Jiang Yi hurriedly said, "Thank you, second brother. Thank you, second brother." He nodded and bowed like a slave, but his current attitude was completely from the bottom of his heart. In the face of fate, he had bowed his head. At this time, Jiang Xiu was completely unaware of what was happening outside. After taking Cheng Lingsu for dinner, he used Cheng Lingsu's phone to arrange a hotel for Wang Xintong. His phone had been damaged when he went to the swimming pool. Because he didn't use his own identity card, the police didn't find it. After checking into the hotel, he began to cultivate. Cheng Lingsu didn't bring a charger, and her phone was out of battery. Perhaps because she hadn't slept well for the past few days and had been frightened today, she fell asleep as soon as she lay on the bed. Little did she know that the Ninghai City Police Department blocked the road all night, and was busy all night. The next morning, Jiang Xiu was woken up by a phone call in his sleep. When he picked up the phone, he was surprised to see that the caller was Gu Shu. "Mr. Jiang, sorry to disturb you." "It's okay, I should get up too," Jiang Xiu said. "Gu Shu, why are you calling so early in the morning? Is there something urgent?" Gu Shu said, "It's like this. My eldest brother wants to meet Mr. Jiang." "He wants to meet me?" Jiang Xiu pondered for a moment and said, "I still have something to do, so I might not be able to leave for a while. I heard from Miss Wang Xintong that Mr. Jiang is now in Ninghai City. My eldest brother is going there to explore a place called Bodhi Biogenetics in the mountains of Ninghai City. You can meet him." Jiang Xiu said, "Bodhi Biogenetics." Gu Shu had mentioned to his elder brother that Jiang Xiu was able to block bullets from a distance, and that he had also obtained the nether wheel. However, his elder brother still seemed to have some reservations, but he still agreed to meet Jiang Xiu. Before that, however, he still wanted to find the location of Bodhi Biogenetics. Chapter 123. Jiang Xiu took the opportunity to ask, "What kind of place is Bodhi Biogenetics?" Gu Deji said, "Mr. Jiang, you must have heard of the martial arts world. There is a demigod ranking in the martial arts world. Bodhi Biogenetics was an organization founded by a man named Li Puti before the founding of the nation. During the turbulent times, Bodhi Biogenetics resisted many foreign enemies, and could be said to have made great contributions to the nation. However, after Nation retreated, Bodhi Biogenetics disappeared without a trace." Jiang Xiu said, "Li Puti." He felt that the name sounded familiar. After a while, he remembered that Ming Luan had mentioned this person and seemed to hold him in high regard. It seemed that he was quite capable. Gu Deji said, "Yes, it's Li Puti, a figure on the demigod ranking. However, that was more than half a century ago. No one knows whether he's dead or alive, but his Bodhi Biogenetics should still be around." Jiang Xiu said, "That's a strange name." Gu Deji said, "Bodhi is a deity. He's also on the demigod ranking, which means that he's trying to turn himself into a god. However, there's no doubt about the strength of Bodhi Biogenetics. They've been tested by war." Jiang Xiu said, "It's good that he's capable. Where is Bodhi Biogenetics?" Gu Deji said, "It should be in a deep mountain called Shiping Mountain to the east of Ninghai City. The specific location is unknown. Big Brother used a lot of the military's power to find some clues. In the past, Bodhi Biogenetics had been in contact with the military, and had a little friendship with the late old master of the Gu family. After all, they had defended against enemies together during the war-torn era." Jiang Xiu said, "Gu Shu's big brother wants to go into the mountain to look for Bodhi Biogenetics?" Gu Deji sensed something unusual in Jiang Xiu's words. He seemed a little unhappy. Gu Deji felt helpless. His big brother had his own considerations. They were both talents that the Gu family wanted to poach. Of course, there were differences in importance. Compared to Jiang Xiu, Gu Deji's big brother definitely trusted Bodhi Biogenetics more. Gu Shu explained, "This plan has been in place for more than 3 months." Jiang Xiu said, "Yes, is there anything else?" Since ancient times, emperors had always loved talents and treated them with respect. True experts were all arrogant. To them, this was a type of humiliation, let alone someone as arrogant as Jiang Xiu. Gu Deji said, No, I'll have to trouble Mr. Jiang to wait for my eldest brother in Ninghai. All right. Gu Diji shook his head helplessly when he heard the busy tone on the other end of the phone. He had also advised his eldest brother that Mr. Jiang should not be neglected. However, his eldest brother had angrily said that the Gu family was recruiting talents, not old masters. If they did not keep him in check, how could the Gu family use him? But was Jiang Xiu someone who could be controlled by the Gu family? Gu Diji had seen how he dealt with people. This person was an ambitious and ruthless person. They could only form an alliance with him. It was wishful thinking to recruit him. After the call with Jiang Xiu, Cheng Lingsu also woke up. After she washed up, she went to Jiang Xiu's room. She looked much better today. Because she had slept enough, her skin was rosy. I was really too tired yesterday. I fell asleep as soon as I lay down on the bed. I didn't even call my parents. What are our plans for today? Jiang Xiu said. There are no plans today. We're waiting for someone. Waiting for someone? Cheng Lingsu felt that it was very strange. She had thought that Jiang Xiu would do something today. At least, he would have to deal with the Tang family's reaction. However, he did not seem to care at all. She felt that Jiang Xiu was still too careless. She said, "Who are we waiting for?" Jiang Xiu said, "Someone who dares to make me wait for him." Okay. At noon, Jiang Xiu received a call. It was from a stranger. The voice was very magnetic. Is this Mr. Jiang? The chief has already arrived in Ninghai City. We are at Mr. Su Zhirong's former residence. Come over. Jiang Xiu did not bat an eyelid. He only said lightly, okay. Jiang Xiu gave him face. He was not giving face to the big boss of the military. He was giving face to Gu Shu. I'm going out to meet someone. Cheng Lingsu said. Do you need me to go with you? No need. Su Zhirong was a famous calligrapher in Ninghai City. He had passed away many years ago. In order to commemorate him, the locals had built his former residence in a very unique style. Many senior officials liked to stay there. Jiang Xiu went out and hailed a taxi. When he arrived at Su Zhirong's former residence, the situation today was completely different from usual. There were guards at the door. Although these people were wearing plain clothes, they all stood upright. It was obvious that they were soldiers. From afar, Jiang Xiu saw a group of people saying to the guards at the door, "We are from Pinghai Province's Luoyin sect. We are here to meet the chief. We spoke on the phone earlier." The guard said, "Old Master Luo." One of the men in the group said with a fist salute, "I am." This man was in his early 60s. His body was a little fat, but his divine aura was restrained. It was obvious that he was a martial artist when he walked. "Please come in." Jiang Xiu did not bat an eyelid. It seemed that the chief came to Ninghai City to meet other people besides Jiang Xiu. However, Ninghai City was close to Shiping Mountain, so he asked people to come here to meet him. "Who are you?" The guard saw Jiang Xiu coming over and looked him up and down. "Jiang Luoxia." The guard said, "There is such a person on the list of names that the chief wants to meet. You are Mr. Jiang?" Jiang Xiu said, "Why, I don't look like it." The guard said, "I didn't expect you to be so young. Please come in." After Jiang Xiu went in, he shook his head and seemed to be very dissatisfied. "You dare to apply for a position in the military at such a young age? Do you really think that the military is a place where you can just sit around and wait for death?" The guard opposite him said, "Old Joe, such a young boy, even younger than me, wants to be our leader." The one called Old Joe said, "I heard that the chief wants to find a chief instructor for our military region this time." "That's even more ridiculous." The guard said, "On the path of martial arts, it is true that talent is important, but the regulated breathing realm is accumulated over time. For him, it would be good if he could cultivate 10 sets of boxing techniques. I'm afraid he hasn't even cultivated his inner strength." Old Joe said, "I heard that this Mr. Jiang is quite famous in Jiangnan. It's said that he killed the demigod of the Jiangnan Wang family." "He's a demigod? What a joke." Old Joe also laughed. "There are too many masters among the people. They boast about each other and deceive those who don't know the ropes. If they want to trick the military, they are simply asking for humiliation. Walking along the corridor, Jiang Xiu saw an empty space from afar. There were many people gathered there, and it seemed that there were people fighting inside. Among them stood an old man with a head full of white hair, but his body was very strong. There were guards on both sides of him, and it was obvious that his status was not ordinary. Luo Yin Gate's elder Luo has arrived. Jiang Luoxia and Mr. Jiang have arrived. Following the two voices, the old man turned around and looked over. His face was serious, and he had thick eyebrows and big eyes. He seemed to be in high spirits. There were 5 people from Luo Yin Gate. When they saw the old man, they went up and bowed. "Greetings, Chief." This person was undoubtedly Gu Dikang. He smiled and said, "Thank you for coming all the way from Pinghai, Elder Luo." "It's my pleasure, it's my pleasure." Jiang Xiu walked over unhurriedly. Gu Dikang had already seen him, but he stood 10 meters away and did not move. He only looked at him from afar, and had no intention of going over to greet him. Such arrogance made Gu Dikang frown slightly. Did he, the host, have to greet him? He gave the guard beside him a look, and the guard went over and said, "This must be Mr. Jiang." "That's right, it's me," the guard said. "I am Yan Zhen from Qinghuan sect." "Greetings, Mr. Jiang." "Mr. Jiang, the chief is meeting with many guests today. Please forgive us if we have neglected you." "Please. This is the chief." Gu Dikang did not come to greet Jiang Luoxia because he thought that Jiang Luoxia was not worthy. However, Gu Dikang sent someone to greet Jiang Luoxia. If he did not go over, then why did he enter this door? In the end, he would be slapping himself in the face. "Mr. Jiang, long time no see." Gu Dikang looked up and down at this young man with a strong personality. He heard that Jiang Xiu was very young, but he did not expect him to be so young. He was not even 20 years old. No, he looked like he was only 18 or 19 years old. This age, in his eyes, was just a child. He shook his head and sighed in his heart. There are a lot of guests today, but fortunately everyone is a martial artist. It's a good opportunity to make friends through martial arts. Let me see Mr. Jiang's ability. Jiang Xiu said, "You want to see my ability? When I attack, I will definitely kill. Are you sure you want to see it?" Chapter 124. Gu Dikang paused for a moment, and then laughed out loud. He was very unhappy. Yan Zhen smiled and said, "Mr. Jiang, you must be joking." Jiang Xiu said, "I'm not joking." Gu Dikang could see that Jiang Xiu was dissatisfied with him, but he was very disdainful. How dare he call himself, "I'm the Venerable"? Only venerables who had achieved great success in a certain Tao would dare to call themselves that. This person was extremely arrogant. It was okay for a young man to be arrogant, but it had to be according to the situation. Being so arrogant in front of him, the head of the military region and such a respected old man, was ignorant and did not know when to stop. He disliked Jiang Xiu very much. The guards not far away were very unhappy. F***CK, who the hell is he? How dare he be so arrogant in front of the head? That's right, he must kill. I don't think he's even seen blood before. Is this guy from a big family and wants to come to our military to make himself look good? These guards were the best in the military. Even if they lost badly in the military region competition, they were still better than others in their own home, and were still domineering. Good. Suddenly there was a cheer and someone fell out. Master Guo of 8-arm boxing from Yongnan wins. Gu Dikang had been watching for a long time. Seeing the winner, he was not stingy with his applause. He said, "Master Guo, you're very capable. Our military is in need of talents, and we want to invite Master Guo to our military region to be an instructor." Master Guo was very excited. "Thank you, head. I will definitely teach my soldiers everything I know," Gu Dikang said. Judging from Master Guo's performance just now, his Neishi has already reached the transcendent state. "May I ask if Master Guo is a transcendent state master?" Master Guo said, "I've been in the transcendent state for 7 or 8 years. Suddenly there was an uproar. He was a transcendent state master. Gu Dikang was excited and laughed. Good, very good. Our military region has another strong general. With Master Guo, we can have one more person to fight in the next year. The guards on the side were also very excited. They had lost too miserably, and were ranked second to last in the entire military region. One more question. Master Gua's age this year is? Master Gua said, 43. Another uproar broke out. Another uproar broke out. He had reached the transcendent state 7 or 8 years ago. In other words, he had reached the transcendent state at the age of 35 or 36. With such talent, it was not impossible for him to become a demigod. Okay. Gu Diking was so happy that he kept saying good. He had really picked up a treasure. Yanjun, Master Gua is about the same age as you, and his strength is similar to yours. You should get closer to him in the future. Yanjun cupped his fists at Master Gua. The other party returned the greeting, and the atmosphere was very harmonious and joyful. Gu Diking said to Jiang Xiao, "Since Mr. Jiang is here, why don't you come down and show your skills? Which one of you will come out and fight with Mr. Jiang?" Usually, the last person to fight would be the last person to fight. Old Man Luo of the Luo Yin sect was not here yet. In other words, Jiang Xiao was not as important as Old Man Luo in Gu Diking's heart. This made Jiang Xiao's eyes even colder. Let me. One by one, the guards fought to be the first to torture Jiang Xiao. Little fifth. Gu Diking called out. A tall and strong young man walked out excitedly and clenched his fists. He was in his 20s and had reached the peak of the internal force. He was one of the top talents in the military. "Mr. Jiang, please enlighten me," Jiang Xiao said coldly. "Sir, why are you in the mood today? Do you want to see me kill someone?" The noisy crowd suddenly quieted down. Gu Diking said, "Mr. Jiang, what do you mean?" Jiang Xiao said, "I have said that I will kill someone." "Sir, are you sure you still want me to fight?" Gu Diking's face darkened. This person is too arrogant. How dare he? Gu Diking looked straight at Jiang Xiao, who dared to provoke him. He said coldly, "Little Fifth, treat Mr. Jiang well." "Yes, sir." Little Fifth's face revealed a cruel expression. In the military, treating him well meant dealing with him well, and not showing any mercy. This brat had angered the sir today. "Brat, don't be too damn arrogant. When I was in Africa and West Asia, wandering between life and death under the rain of bullets, where were you?" Jiang Xiao raised his eyebrows and said, "You still want me to fight? Well, it's not like I'm going to lose my life anyway. What's the big deal?" These words were harsh. Gu Diking's face darkened again. "Little Fifth, what are you waiting for?" Captain Yanjun shouted angrily. Whoosh whoosh. The fist tore through the air, making a cracking sound. Little Fifth responded. His arms were extremely strong, and his muscles were like fine steel. His punches were as high as 301 kilograms, which would make the world speechless. If 5 people stood in a row and hugged their pads, he could send all of them flying with one punch. What a powerful punch! Master Gua and Old Master Luo on the side were also moved. This is already close to the peak of internal force. How old is he? When the guards at the scene saw Little Fifth's move, their faces were filled with pride. Little Fifth was the most promising seedling in their military region. His talent was extraordinary and he was deeply loved by the leader. The leader was trying his best to nurture him. If he was given another 10 or so years, he would definitely become a person who could hold his own. The reason why the military region didn't fall to the last place in the military region competition was because of Little Fifth. He won all the way until he met King Kong. How long has it been? Little Fifth's strength seems to have increased again. His strength seems to be more than 300 kilograms. After Little Fifth lost the competition, he trained even harder. The guy opposite is in trouble. Everyone revealed a gloating expression. Little Fifth's punch was incredible. Those who were weak might have been directly killed. He's dead meat. Gu Diking smiled, but the next moment, the smile froze on his face. Under everyone's incredulous gaze, Jiang Xiao stretched out his hand casually. Then with a gentle pinch, he caught the big fist in his palm. His hand was like a robot's iron clamp. The heavy fist was pinched tightly in his hand, making it difficult for it to move an inch. What's wrong? Everyone's face paled as a bad feeling arose in their hearts. This punch of more than 300 kilograms was equivalent to the weight of 5 adult men. However, he blocked it so easily. Then the ear-piercing sound of broken bones was heard. Crack! Little Fifth's arm was strangely twisted. Ah! A tragic cry was heard. Broken bones! Little Fifth was in so much pain that he knelt down on the spot. Stop! Little Fifth was the focus of the military. If his injury was too serious, it would affect his cultivation in the future. Gu Dikang shouted anxiously. I've said it before. When I attack, I must kill. Previously, everyone only thought that he was showing off, but after seeing how he easily received such a punch and even broke Little Fifth's arm, the powerful soldier king was unable to retaliate in front of Jiang Xiu. They finally understood how terrifying Jiang Xiu was. He might really kill someone. Jiang Xiu smiled coldly. I'm not joking with you. Crack! Another sound was heard. Little Fifth's other arm was broken. Crack! Both his legs were broken too. The air was filled with Little Fifth's miserable cries. At this moment, everyone's heart turned cold. They looked at Jiang Xiu with narrowed eyes. Little Fifth's entire face was distorted. The veins on his forehead and neck were popping out. Even breathing became difficult. You're too stupid. Your life is your own. In this world, the only thing that can make a man sell his life is his own desire. Jiang Xiu leaned down and said, Look, you're about to be killed by me. Your chief didn't even speak up for you. Little Fifth's expression froze. He seemed to have forgotten about the pain. Humph! Jiang Xiu let go. Everyone present reacted and quickly went to check on Little Fifth's injuries. Little Fifth, doctor, come quickly. Gu Dikang's face was ashen. He was so angry that his eyes were about to spit fire. You. When Little Fifth's arm was broken, he had completely lost the ability to fight back. At that time, Little Fifth had already lost. But he still wanted to break Little Fifth's 4 limbs. This was giving Gu Dikang a show of strength. This show of strength was a bit too ruthless. Now he somewhat understood why his second brother said that this person could not be disrespected. Little Fifth's 4 limbs were broken. Even if they were repaired, his martial arts would not be as good as before. Jiang Xiu said, Chief, my strength, is it enough for you? Chapter 125. Gu Dikang's entire body began to tremble. He couldn't say anything for a long time. Jiang Xiu continued. I heard that the chief's military region placed second to last in the military competition. He really touched on a sore spot. Gu Dikang's old face was slapped loudly. He said with a gloomy face. So what if it is? Jiang Xiu said. If it is, I'm afraid that next year it will be ranked last. Humph. Gu Dikang blew his beard and glared. This year my military region is recruiting heroes. Next year, even if my military region doesn't place in the top 3, it will definitely be above average. Jiang Xiu shook his head and said, It will be very difficult for you to recruit people. Why? Jiang Xiu said. Because you don't deserve it. What did you say? Gu Dikang flew into a rage. The guards behind him were already unable to restrain their anger. Jiang Xiu's words completely ignited their anger. Impudent. Arrogant. How dare you? Jiang Xiu's eyes were indifferent. People like you don't deserve people to work for you. If anyone dares to enter your military region, I will cripple them. Gu Dikang's face turned ashen. Being bullied like this in front of his face, where would he put his dignity as the chief of the military region? What did you say? The guards all rushed up to Jiang Xiu one by one. Gu Dikang's eyes suddenly shot out a strong murderous intent. Mr. Jiang, do you want to become enemies with my military region? Jiang Xiu stood with his hands behind his back. So what if it is? Gu Dikang's eyes became colder and colder. Jiang Xiu could easily take Xiaowu's punch. His strength was not weak, and he was so young. He was originally a talent, but he was really too arrogant. Such a person, even if Gu Dikang used him, he would still hold back. With such a person who didn't know when to stop, sooner or later he would cause a disaster, and die an unnatural death. Master Gua, who had just been recruited into the military, answered the call and walked out with a majestic gait. He cupped his fists and said loudly, I am Gua Yu of the 8-armed fist. I would like to learn from you. This person is too arrogant. Master Gua, Treat him well. It's best to break his limbs. Avenge Xiao Wu. In the distance, several people in the Luo Yin gate began to whisper. One of them, a middle-aged man, said, "This Mr. Jiang is too insolent. He actually turned hostile in public, just because the chief was disrespectful. I'm afraid he won't be able to step out of this door today." "That's what he asked for," Old Master Luo said. "In the past, martial cultivators were like this. Since they were invited, they must not be disrespectful. When humiliated, they must draw their sword. This is the strength of character. A true martial cultivator can be unmoved by money, but he can also draw his sword to kill for an egg or a copper coin. If it weren't for these descendants, he wouldn't have bowed to the rich and powerful." "Then who will win?" Old Master Luo said. "It's hard to say. I think Master Guo is stronger." "Ha!" With an angry shout, Master Guo stomped his right foot on the ground. The stone bricks under his feet immediately cracked. Stone chips flew out, and dust flew up. His entire body rushed out. The gravel that flew out broke the branches on the side, and the glass at the far end shattered. Just this momentum alone was 100 times stronger than Xiao Wu. 8-arm fist. He turned sideways, swung his back, and pressed down with his long arm. At this moment, the strength of his arm was like a long knife chopping down from the sky, and even the air was torn apart inch by inch. Seeing this, the bodyguards in the field were shocked, especially the bodyguard who had just fought with Guo Yu. It turned out that he had been fighting with Guo Yu for a long time, and his opponent had purposely gone easy on him. He is definitely a powerful fighter. Old Master Luo said. This man's 8-arm fist has reached the transcendent state. His arms are as hard as steel. It looks like that young man is going to suffer. The fist wind howled. Guo Yu was confident that even a transcendent grandmaster would not be able to withstand this punch. It was an ancient fist art that came from the inside out. The qi and blood in his body surged like waves in the ocean. He even thought that he would be able to withstand this punch even if he was a demigod. This punch contained nearly 40 years of hard work. "You will lose." Jiang Xiu smiled faintly at Guo Yu. He clasped his hands behind his back, as if he was scared out of his wits. Just as the punch was about to land on Jiang Xiu's head, he suddenly reached out a hand. It was a simple and unadorned move, but it was enough to shock everyone. Clank! Jiang Xiu grabbed Guo Yu's fist. His hands were once again like a robot's iron pincers, holding Guo Yu's fist tightly, making it difficult for him to move even an inch. Gotcha! Just like Xiao Wu, Guo Yu's arm was twisted and broken. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream filled the air. As soon as Guo Yu fell to the ground, he fell to his knees. Silence fell over the field. It was the same for internal force experts and neutralizing grandmasters. It was as if there was no difference between them and Shifeng. How could this be? Everyone in the field was shocked beyond words. Jiang Xiu said coldly. "Did you hear what I just said? Do you still want to join the military?" Guo Yu was drenched in cold sweat. No. Jiang Xiu let go of Guo Yu's hand. Guo Yu was in so much pain that the muscles on his face twitched. However, he gritted his teeth and said, "I will never join the military again. Thank you, Mr. Jiang." With that, Guo Yu held his right hand with his left hand and walked out of the field. He didn't even look at Gu Dikang. Guo Yu should be thankful that Jiang Xiu didn't break his arms and legs. "Sir, what do you have to say for yourself?" Gu Dikang's face flushed red with anger. He had never been humiliated like this, not even during the military competition where his division came in second last. However, the bodyguards around him didn't dare to raise their voices. Even a transcendent master was defeated by a single punch, let alone them. "Do you really think that we can't do anything to you just because you have defeated Master Guo?" Gu Dikang said. "Old man Luo, if you can defeat this man, I will make you a colonel." Hearing this, the crowd was in an uproar. They had struggled in the military for so many years. To them, this position was so far out of reach. It could even be said that it was their lifelong goal. However, this old man had such an opportunity without even making a single effort. Old man Luo said, "Sir, are you serious?" Gu Dikang said, "There is no such thing as a joke in the military." "Very well. He came to see Gu Dikang this time to ask for riches and honor for his descendants. Now, with riches and honor in front of him, he had no reason to refuse. Mr. Jiang, I am Luo Yihao from the Luo Yin sect. I would like to learn from you. Jiang Xiu looked at him lightly and said, Do you want to break your left hand or your right hand? How arrogant. Father, let him see our Luo Yin sect's Tian Luo secret fist. The Luo Yin sect used to be called the Underworld sect. It had some religious beliefs, and was prosperous during the Republic of China. Later, the political situation was turbulent, and its core members emigrated overseas, leaving only one branch. It gradually declined and finally became the current Luo Yin sect. However, it was said that the Underworld sect had many strange secret techniques that were unpredictable. One of them was called dream-seeking. A person would fight with another person in a dream state. It was very strange, as if the person would know everything about you beforehand. The essence of the Luo Yin sect had been passed down for so long that they had lost most of their essence. Therefore, they changed the name of the fist technique to Sky Luo Honey Fist. It was because of the reputation of the Underworld sect that Gu Dikang attached the most importance to him. This old Master Luo's attack was extraordinary. It was as if he suddenly disappeared from the ground. When he reappeared, he attacked Jiang Xiu with an afterimage. His feet moved left and right. It was very strange. Jiang Xiu saw a shadow of Lin Zhenbei and Chu Tiannan when they fought. There seemed to be some similarities in their movement techniques. In the eyes of the people present, the sky was filled with Old Man Luo's shadow. It was so fast that they couldn't even see where his real body was. They couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Good. Gu Zhikong was very excited. He finally saw a top expert. With this speed, you can't even hit him with a gun. Gu Zhikong said. Our military region has such an expert. Why would we be afraid of not winning the competition next year? Why would we be afraid of this little thief acting so presumptuously here? That day's work wasn't in vain. Was he still human with this skill? Chief. Yan Zhen was also very excited. This was almost like the image of a demigod. It surpassed the limits of ordinary martial arts. He was going to be rich. Lose, Mr. Jiang. You can't even lock on to my position. After the welcome ended, many shadows gathered towards Jiang Xiu. They attacked. Huaman suddenly stopped. He saw Jiang Xiu grab Old Man Luo's hands. How is this possible? Everyone in the Luo family was extremely shocked. This brat was a cheater. Every time, he would catch the person. Crack. Both arms were broken at the same time. Jiang Xiu's indifferent voice sounded. I asked you left hand or right hand, but you didn't say. I had no choice but to break both of your hands. Gu Zhikong's face instantly turned green. His body trembled slightly. Chapter 126. Old Man Luo let out a blood-curdling scream. Both of his arms were broken, and the pain was unimaginable. His body trembled violently, but the fear in his eyes was greater than the pain. Old Man Luo was well aware of his power. He had already reached the secret state, the last stage before he could become a demigod. It was a stage that most people didn't even know about. The transcendent Grandmaster was like a child in his eyes. However, he was defeated by such a young man in a blink of an eye. What level was this young man at? The peak of the arcane state? Or the legendary demigod? Old Man Luo's eyes almost popped out of their sockets at the thought. Jiang Xiu's cold voice drifted into his ears. Let me ask you, are you going to join or not? Old Man Luo hurriedly shook his head and said, No, I won't. I will never join the military as long as I live. Jiang Xiu finally let go of Old Man Luo's hand. Thank you, Mr. Jiang, for your advice. Old Man Luo's children hurried over to help him off the stage. Jiang Xiu asked, Sir, how are you doing now? Gu Dikang's face turned pale. He had never expected Jiang Xiu to be so powerful that even a peerless master like Old Man Luo was no match for him. Just as Old Man Luo had said, Jiang Xiu's power was enough to make him a VIP in any military department. Coupled with his age, his future was limitless. The sky was his limit. This was supposed to be the glory that belonged to the Gu family. However, Gu Dikang's disrespect had ruined it, and he had made an enemy out of him. At this moment, Gu Dikeng regretted his disrespect of Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu said, "I have already said that you are not worthy." The guards around him lowered their heads. Gu Dikeng said, "You are too presumptuous. Are you going to cripple every expert that my military region recruits?" Jiang Xiu said, "I always keep my word." "Good. Great." Gu Dikeng said, "I'm going to head to Western Ping Mountain to meet with the people from Bodhi Biogenetics. If there are no accidents, the descendants of Bodhi Biogenetics Li Puti will also be joining my military. When that time comes, let's see how you're going to cripple them." There was a look of ridicule in his eyes. Gu Dikeng felt that it was a great pity for these talents who had been forced to retreat by Jiang Xiu. It was also a great humiliation for him. However, his true hope was Bodhi Biogenetics. Jiang Xiu said, "What's wrong with accompanying your Bodhi Biogenetics?" Gu Dikeng's face was cold as he said, "Yan Zhen passed down the order. We'll leave early." "Yes, Chief." They set off soon. In order to avoid the awkwardness of getting along with Jiang Xiu, they arranged a separate car for him. Bodhi Biogenetics was located deep within the Western Ping Mountains. The Western Ping Mountains were close to Sichuan and connected to the 100,000 Mountains. It was considered a deep mountain forest. There were basically no people there. In the past, it was said that some people had gone there to avoid the disaster of war. After leaving Ninghai City, they headed west and entered the mountains. After walking for more than 10 miles, they stopped at the last county in Baijiao. There were no more counties in front of them. They were basically all mountain villages. Cars could not be driven into the mountains, so they could only walk. However, it was a very difficult thing for them. Some guards were still sloppy and could barely cope with it. However, Gu Dikeng was old. It was still very challenging to enter the deep mountains and forests. As for Jiang Xiu, the immortal martial continent was filled with mountains. Therefore, Jiang Xiu was very experienced in entering the mountains. He was much closer to the mountains than to the cities. Not to mention the 100,000 mountains. He had conquered the mountains that stretched for thousands of miles when he first entered the Tianqing school. That mountain range was the Tianqing mountain range, where his sect was located. At that time, in order to collect spiritual herbs, he really drilled into all kinds of places. Yan Zhen took out a map and spread it on the table. He studied the roads in the mountains. "Chief, the safest way for us is to find a local guide. Otherwise, we will be in a lot of trouble." Gu Dikeng nodded and said, "Okay." When I went to Inner Mongolia in the past, without a local to lead the way, I would definitely get lost in the grassland and wouldn't be able to find my way. The role of a local is far beyond what we can imagine. It's best to find a guide. It's best if they have been to Bodhi Biogenetics before. Yan Zhen nodded and ran into the village to look for a guide. "Fellow countrymen," they called out to a local girl who was wearing strange clothes. "Miss, may I ask if you've heard of a place called Bodhi Biogenetics in the mountains?" The girl shook her head. "I don't know. I'll help you ask Grandpa." "Grandpa." An old man sat by the stone steps, smoking a pipe. At the top of the steps was a stone house. "These guests say that they want to enter the mountains to find a place called Bodhi Biogenetics?" The old man shook his head. "Bodhi Biogenetics? Are they looking for a bodhisattva?" "I've never heard of Bodhi Biogenetics, but I do know of a place called Immortal Abode in the mountains. There are immortals living there. Often, people enter the mountains to find them, either to ask for medicine or to ask for blessings." Yin Zhen and his comrade looked at each other. Before they came, they had heard some news. Some people who were suffering from chronic diseases and wanted to improve their martial arts or live longer had entered the mountains to find Bodhi Biogenetics. From this, they suspected that the immortal abode the locals were talking about was most likely Bodhi Biogenetics. Immortal abode? Is it far? It's quite far. We'll have to put in some effort. Yinjin looked at the sun. Fellow countrymen, can you take us in? We'll pay you. Is 1,000 enough? The old man took a drag of his pipe and stood up. He patted his butt and said, I'll take you in. Don't mention the money. The people of the mountains were just this enthusiastic. Yinjin said, we still have to pay. We can't let you work for nothing. In the distance, Jiang Xiu sat in front of the pavilion of the small store, calmly drinking tea. His leisurely appearance made Gu Dikang even angrier. He thought to himself, when we really get to Bodhi Biogenetics, you'll be so scared that you won't even dare to say a word. Bodhi Biogenetics and Li Puti had already been deified by the world. They were practically gods. How could mere mortals compete with gods? Sir, we've found the guide. Should we rest for a while, or should we set off immediately? While they were searching for Bodhi Biogenetics in the mountains, a police officer rushed into the Ninghai City police station and said excitedly, "Officer Ling, Jiang Xiu has appeared. He's near Mr. Su Rongji's old residence." Jiang Yi and Lin Yueling's expressions immediately changed. They had stayed in the police station's guest house last night, and had come to the police station early in the morning. Right now they were completely focused on their son. Only when they arrived at the police station would they be able to relax. In their hearts, they still hoped that their son would be able to escape. Ling Dongqing stood up. "Is the news reliable?" The police officer said. "It was provided by the people living near Mr. Su Rongji's old residence. According to their description, he looks 80 to 90% similar to Jiang Xiu." Ling Dongqing picked up the hat on the table and said, "Dispatch the police immediately." Immediately, the police station's level 1 alarm went off. Jiang Yi and Lin Yueling panicked. "Officer, take us with you." "What are you doing? Don't get in our way." Jiang Yi said. "Officer, take us with you. If anything happens, we'll be able to step in. That child listens to us." Ling Dongqing pondered for a moment and said, "Take them with you." Instantly, police cars sped out of the police station one after another to arrest someone. The Ninghai City police station had never been so tense as it was today. When Tang Jingping received the news, he immediately ordered his driver to go with him. He wanted to see his son's murderer brought to justice with his own eyes. However, they were still too late. By the time they arrived at Mr. Su Rongji's old residence, the group had already set off. However, the police did not give up on the chase. After asking the neighbor, Jiang Xiu, about the direction of his escape, they quickly chased after him. He escaped to Sheeping Mountain. It seems that he wants to escape into the mountains and take a detour, then escape the country. Tang Jingping said. Chase him, chase him. We must not let him escape the country." More than a dozen police cars chased in the direction of Sheeping Mountain. However, all the way to the far west, they did not find any trace of Jiang Xiu. Tang Jingping watched Jiang Xiu escape and angrily shouted at Jiang Yi. "Tell me, where did your son escape to?" Jiang Yi pushed him away. "How would I know? Accomplices, you are accomplices." The furious Tang Jingping pointed at Jiang Yi and said, "Arrest them." Ling Dongqing said, "Tang Shu, this is against the rules." Bullsh *T rules. My words are the rules. Arrest them. I don't believe that little bastard won't come out. Chapter 127. Although this fellow from the same hometown was short and skinny, his speed was very fast. He even had to accommodate Gu Dikang. This chief had to rest for a while after walking for a while. In order to hurry up, his guards had to take turns to carry him. Jiang Xiu said, "You don't even know where Bodhi Biogenetics is. How can you be so sure that they'll agree to enter your military district?" He was worried that all his efforts would be for naught, and that he wouldn't even be able to find the place. Gu Dikang said, "Of course I can be sure. Before Bodhi Biogenetics went into hiding, they had some dealings with my Gu family. They left a sign for my family, telling us to go to them if we run into any problems that we can't solve. Bodhi Biogenetics will definitely help us." Jiang Xiu smiled. "So that's how it is. However, you still can't be sure whether or not Bodhi Biogenetics is in this mountain." Gu Dikang said, "It shouldn't be wrong. We've decided to use that sign. I've already prepared for 3 months and collected a lot of information. I'm certain that it's in this mountain." "What? Are you starting to get scared?" When the bodyguards heard this, they all revealed mocking expressions. What kind of existence was Bodhi Biogenetics? In that special era, even foreign enemies would pale at the mention of it. Li Puti was like a god in the East, leaving behind countless legends. Even if a brat still wet behind his ears had some strength, he couldn't compare to a deified figure from 100 years ago. Humph, ignorant. After the group walked for a while, they actually met people deep in the mountains. They bumped into a man and two women. It was normal to run into people on the road, but in the depths of the forest, people would feel extremely insecure. Naturally, their reactions would be different, and everyone would be on guard against each other. Gu Dikeng naturally wasn't afraid. His subordinates were all capable of fighting, but the other party was a bit nervous. The other party quietly communicated with each other. Jiang Xiu noticed that the man's health wasn't too good. He needed two women to take care of him. One of the women was in her 40s, while the other was in her 20s. They seemed to be a family. The beautiful woman said, "You're also going into the mountains to look for the immortal abode?" Gu Dikeng said, "Yes." The beautiful woman's expression changed slightly. What a coincidence. A smile appeared on Gu Dikeng's face. He could sense the nervousness of the beautiful woman's group. He opened his mouth and said, "Since our destination is the same, why don't we travel together?" "Don't worry, we are very decent people." Gu Dikeng was in a high position and had an extraordinary aura. Naturally, he was not someone who would act like a thief. In addition, the guards around him looked resolute, so he did not look like a bad person. The beautiful woman said, "That's great. At least we have a companion on the road." Gu Dikeng asked, "Why are you looking for the immortal abode?" The beautiful woman said, "To treat my husband's illness." It was rumored that a deity resided in the immortal abode. His medical skills were exceptional, and he could cure any incurable illness. As a result, many people with chronic illnesses would try their luck in the mountains. Hope is scary. When a person has cancer, if someone tells him that cannibalism can cure him, he will definitely eat it. This was human nature. "Your husband doesn't seem to be able to walk." The man walked with great difficulty, and the young woman beside him was also struggling to support him. Jiang Xiu glanced over. The young woman looked like her mother, and her looks were outstanding. "Yes, his body's condition is very poor," Gu Dikeng ordered. "Yanzhen, arrange for someone to carry him." "Yes." A guard immediately went to carry the man. "Thank you so much." A strange light flashed through Jiang Xiu's eyes, and he couldn't help but grunt. The man was wearing a baseball cap and a mask. His body was tightly wrapped up in the heat, but Jiang Xiu could see that his face had turned black, and there was something that looked like scales growing out of it. His eyes narrowed as he looked over. As expected, in his field of vision, the man's body emitted a faint black aura. This wasn't an illness, nor was it poison. It was more like a mutation, a symptom of a divine cultivator going astray. What surprised Jiang Xiu was that there were no signs of a divine cultivator on him. He was just an ordinary person. The mother and daughter next to him were also ordinary people. This is strange. Only after interacting with him did he realize that they could tell that Gu Dikeng wasn't an ordinary person, so they told him their identities. They came from Pinghai's Xie family. The man was called Xie Sanxian, and his family's assets were in the hundreds of millions. According to them, his illness had flared up last year, and his condition worsened quickly. At first he would vomit blood for some reason. When he went to the hospital for an examination, they found that his organs were failing, but they couldn't find the cause. Today, it was already difficult for him to eat, and even walking was difficult. Their daughter was very obedient. She obediently accompanied him without saying anything, as if she was extremely worried about her father's condition. Jiang Xiu said, "Perhaps Mr. Xie doesn't have an illness." Seeing that Jiang Xiu, who usually didn't interrupt, was speaking, the family looked over. But before they could speak, a guard said, "Don't pretend to know when you don't know. You're delaying others." His tone was very harsh and impolite. The family felt very strange. Why did it feel like Jiang Xiu wasn't with them? The beautiful woman asked, "This is?" Gu Dikeng didn't know how to introduce Jiang Xiu. He said casually, "We're in the same profession. Don't mess around. You can't joke about things like seeing a doctor." Jiang Xiu said, "We're already deep in the mountains looking for illusory elixirs. What else can we delay? Although his words were a bit harsh, they were indeed the truth. This, Jiang Xiu said. Mr. Xia, I hope you don't mind. Take off your hat and mask. Perhaps I can help you. The beautiful woman and the young girl looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with apprehension. Xia Sanxian shook his head. He hadn't said a single word from start to finish. There's no need to trouble this mister. Seeing that Jiang Xiu had been rejected, the guards roared with laughter. The beautiful woman explained, "It's not that we don't trust you, little brother. It's just that my husband's condition is extremely strange. We're just worried that it might be contagious. In any case, we'll reach the immortal abode soon." If it was contagious, the mother and daughter would have been infected long ago. This was just an excuse. However, her explanation also gave Jiang Xiu a way out. Jiang Xiu thought to himself, "You're just worried that people will call me a freak if I reveal his current appearance, aren't you?" The old man, who hadn't interjected this entire time, said, "There are many people in the immortal abode who ask for pills, but the number of people who actually get to see a deity is few and far between." The beautiful woman's interest was piqued. "Fellow townsmen, are there really deities in the mountains?" The old man said, "Yes, there are. It's called the immortal abode because some people saw a deity. It's said that the deities in the immortal abode possess remarkable abilities. They can control fire and water, turn stone into gold, summon lightning and rain." The beautiful woman said, "Then what do you need to use to move the deities and have them bestow medicine?" This, the old man said, "I can't say for sure. In any case, the deities don't need money or items. They need sincerity. Oh, right, the immortal abode also recruits little celestial children. If the deities touch their heads, they'll be recruited." Although Bodhi biogenetics was hidden from the world, they still lived in modern society. They couldn't be completely cut off from the rest of the world. They had to pass down their legacies, and that required children. They had to go to the outside world to find people, so they naturally had to interact with the outside world. In order to interact with the outside world, money was a necessity. Jiang Xiu said, "If you use money, it should be possible." The beautiful woman and young girl both looked at him. The beautiful woman seemed to be on guard against Jiang Xiu. First he wanted to treat her husband's illness, and now he wanted money. This person's intentions weren't right. She said, "Deities are otherworldly beings. How could they be interested in something as mundane as money?" Jiang Xiu smiled but didn't say anything else. Deities roamed the immortal martial continent, but weren't they the same as mortals? They had to bow before money. The path ahead became more and more rugged, and there were poisonous snakes and miasma along the way. Fortunately, the old man was there to guide them, and they were able to walk through the daunting experience without any mishaps. Finally, the clouds parted to reveal the moon. A natural mountain valley appeared in front of them. It was like a natural moat that separated them from the horizon. From a distance, it was truly magnificent. "That's the immortal abode." Gu Zhikong furrowed his brows. "There's nothing there. If there were people living here, there should at least be buildings. Is it hidden by some kind of formation?" Jiang Xiu shook his head. Bodhi biogenetics had really been deified. The forest was so dense that it wasn't difficult to hide the buildings. Moreover, he already saw people cultivating in the valley. Chapter 128. Gu Dikang dismounted from his bodyguard's back and looked at the valley in front of him. His eyes were filled with excitement as he said, "This should be the place. Bodhi biogenetics must have used a formation to cover them up." Yanzhen said, "Old Gu, shall we go in?" After all, Yanzhen was the head of the military region. His status was not ordinary, so he couldn't directly call him by his title. Therefore, Yanzhen and his bodyguard addressed him as Old Gu. Gu Dikang said, "Of course." He planned to walk on his own. They were about to reach Bodhi biogenetics. If people saw him being carried in by his bodyguard, Bodhi biogenetics would feel that they were not sincere. Many people who went up the mountain to pray to Buddha and Bodhisattva had to carry their offerings up the mountain. Otherwise, their prayers would not be effective. Gu Dikang had the same mentality. He really treated Bodhi biogenetics as if they were gods. The beautiful woman and the young girl were also very excited. We're here. We're really here. When they entered the valley together, a group of people came rushing over. They were very fast. Black shadows shuttled through the valley and soon arrived at the entrance. Who are you people? The beautiful woman couldn't wait to say, We're here to seek medical treatment. Please save my husband. His illness is very serious, and he's about to die. When the man saw these people, it was as if he had seen a life-saving straw. He suddenly had the strength to rush over, but his legs gave way and he almost fell into the haystack. Dad. The young girl hurriedly supported him. The few people who came were not old. Although they had short hair, they were dressed very strangely. They wore pure white robes with a strange flower embroidered on the left side of their chests. Their robes fluttered in the wind, giving them a somewhat ethereal feeling. But when he heard the words, he frowned and said, You're here to seek medical treatment? Please, I beg you, save my father. One of the men said, You've come at a bad time. Today is not the day for treatment. You should go back and come back 3 years later in September. 3 years later in September? That man was long dead. God, I beg you, the man said. I said no means no. There is no room for discussion. You can leave. If you continue to cry here, be careful of the god's anger. That family was filled with hot tears, but they didn't dare to cry or make a fuss. When a deity was angry, it wasn't just the man who would be in trouble. Their entire family would probably suffer. Humph. Jiang Xiu snorted coldly. Who is it? Who dares to be so impudent here? The valley was very quiet. Jiang Xiu's voice clearly entered their ears. This disdainful snort made their faces turn cold. Jiang Xiu said coldly, A few gatekeepers dare to call themselves immortals. Your skin is really thick. You. Their faces became very ugly. They wanted to be angry, but they couldn't because what Jiang Xiu said was true. They were gatekeepers. On the other hand, Gu Dikang, who was standing at the side, was so anxious that cold sweat was about to drip down his forehead. It turned out that this brat was planning to offend the people from Bodhi biogenetics and ruin his relationship with them. Naturally, the people from Bodhi biogenetics would not join the military, and this was not a real competition. Despicable, simply shameless. Who are you? How dare you speak nonsense here? Gu Dikang hurriedly said. Upper Immortal, don't listen to this person's nonsense. He's here to cause trouble. Please help us pass on a message. Just say that the secular Gu family has come to visit. After hearing the first half of the sentence, their mood improved. After all, this person was deliberately causing trouble and couldn't say anything. But what did the second half mean? Did he really think they were gatekeepers and wanted them to pass on a message? But it seemed like they really were gatekeepers. The gatekeepers didn't have a good expression. Go, go, go. The immortals don't have time. Go back to where you came from. Gu Dikang said, My Gu family and Bodhi biogenetics are old friends. I am Gu Dikang, the military commander of the Jingmen military district. Please pass on a message. I'm sure they will receive us. As he spoke, he handed over the token. Xie Sanqian's family was startled, especially the man and the beautiful woman. They were extremely shocked. On the way here, they were suspicious of old Gu's identity. They didn't expect him to be such a high-ranking official. The gatekeepers took the token and looked at it. Their expressions changed greatly. So it's an old friend. Please come in. Gu Dikang took the token again and was about to walk in. Xie Sanqian's family was like a drowning person who saw a float. The beautiful woman excitedly said, Old Gu, please say a few good words for us. Let them treat my husband. Gu Dikang didn't reply and directly walked in. This token was a favor that Bodhi biogenetics owed the Gu family. How could he use it on a stranger he met by chance? The beautiful woman didn't give up and wanted to walk in, but she was stopped by Gu Dikang's bodyguards. Old Gu. The beautiful woman and the young girl were screaming at the top of their lungs. Gu Dikang turned a deaf ear. What did the life and death of these people have to do with Gu Dikang? Gu Dikang. A voice called out his name. Gu Dikang immediately frowned. Who would dare to call him by his name? Moreover, he knew that the person who called him by his name was Jiang Xiao. Impudent. Gu Dikang was now backed by Bodhi Biogenetics, so he was confident. Humph, do you still remember what this sovereign said? Gu Dikang said. What did you say? Jiang Xiao said. This sovereign said that this sovereign will definitely kill. Did you think that this sovereign was joking? What do you mean? Boom. He abruptly raised his hand, and in that instant, it was as if time and space had been stretched by him. He swiped his hand across the air at the man from Bodhi Biogenetics who had just spoken, and a strange force of energy shot out like a sword arcpucci. The man didn't even have time to scream before his body was cleaved in half. Blood splattered everywhere, and the surrounding rocks and grass were stained with blood. Whoosh! Cries of alarm rang out. Everyone present couldn't believe their eyes. Jiang Xiao could cleave someone in half from a distance. However, this wasn't the most shocking part. What terrified them the most was that this was Bodhi Biogenetics, the immortal abode. He dared to kill someone from Bodhi Biogenetics? They couldn't even withstand a single blow. You killed them as if they were chickens, and you still dare to call yourself an immortal. You're nothing but a thief. Gu Dikang was stunned. When he finally reacted, there was no anger on his face. Instead, he was overjoyed. Jiang Luoxia, you dared to kill someone from Bodhi Biogenetics? You're finished. Jiang Xiao took a step forward, and his voice rang out clearly. Descending from the heavens, the 9 mysteries cleanses the heavens, 1,000 years of work. Even if you don't know your place, you're still outstanding. His voice seemed to come from ancient times, and it carried with it a boundless and ancient feeling. It reverberated through the entire mountain valley. And in the end, it was like a sound wave that caused the air to tremble and the eyes to feel dizzy. Bodhi Biogenetics, Jiang Luoxiao of Rivertown, has arrived. Why aren't you welcoming him? As he spoke, he had already stepped forward. The disciples at the entrance wanted to stop him, but they didn't even have time to speak, let alone attack. They were all killed on the spot. Gu Dikang was dumbfounded at the sight of such horror. He couldn't believe it. Jiang Xiao hadn't just crippled them this time, he'd actually killed them. He'd actually killed several people in a row, and from the looks of it, he didn't seem to have any intention of stopping. And this was just the appetizer. The entire immortal abode seemed to have been roused from its slumber. The bell in the valley rang loudly, and everyone hurried out. What's going on? I don't know. A disciple ran over to report. Venerable Bodhi, it's bad. Someone's killed their way in. They've killed several of our disciples. What? The white-robed man, who looked like a landlord from the Republic of China, was shocked. Immediately organize a response. His eyes shone with an ominous light. Someone actually dared to cause trouble for Bodhi Biogenetics. Gu Dikang followed behind Jiang Xiao. He saw that the people who rushed out of the valley were either burned to a crisp by his flames, killed by his sword, or blasted to death by a single punch. The tide of people rushed over, but they all fell to the ground like straw. Not a single one of them could withstand a single blow from him. In the blink of an eye, he'd already killed more than 20 people. Shock, and confusion. Gu Dikang's eyes bulged, and his entire body trembled. Was this a human or a ghost? How could he be so strong? This was no different from shooting at a crowd of people with a machine gun. Gu Dikang's guards were also completely dumbfounded. The scene before them had completely overturned their worldview. Chapter 129. Xie Sanxian, the beautiful woman, and the young girl were completely dumbfounded. Their bodies trembled, and their hearts were filled with shock. What exactly was he? A human? A god? Or a demon? At this moment, they felt as if they were witnessing the arrival of an existence that transcended human beings. What he had done was not something a human could do. In the blink of an eye, he had slaughtered several people. Without stopping, he had already walked to the center of the valley. The people of Bodhi Biogenetics did not dare to rush forward. Instead, they circled around Jiang Xiao and surrounded him. An old man rushed out and shouted angrily, Jiang Luoxiao of Rivertown, how dare you enter Bodhi Biogenetics and kill our disciples? Jiang Xiao stood with his hands behind his back. What? Is Bodhi biogenetics a forbidden place that I can't enter, but your disciples are superior and can't be slaughtered? Now what's wrong with me entering? What's wrong with me slaughtering them? Just as the old man was about to explode, a voice rang out. In front of a demigod, Venerable Bodhi must not be rude. Along with this voice, a man dressed like a landlord walked out. He cupped his hands at Jiang Xiu and said, Demigod Jiang, you are a dignified demigod. May I know what business you have with Bodhi biogenetics? Demigod? Gu Dikang and his guards were once again stunned. It was as if they had been struck by lightning. He is really a demigod. Before this, Gu Dikang had thought that Jiang Xiu could not possibly be a demigod. Only someone like Bodhisattva Li could be a demigod. How could a brat who was not even 20 years old be a demigod? But now the people of Bodhi biogenetics had said that Jiang Xiu was a demigod. Moreover, the extraordinary strength he had displayed on his way and had all been verified. He was indeed a demigod. Jiang Xiu pointed at Gu Dikang. You asked him, who are you? Gu Dikang's expression was very ugly, and his heart was very nervous. But when he thought about it, even though Jiang Xiu had killed people to prevent Bodhi biogenetics from entering the military region, it could be said that he was involved in some way. But in the end he was the one who killed people. If Bodhi biogenetics wanted to settle the score, they should be looking for him. After thinking through this point, he calmed down and said, I am Gu Dikang from the Jingmen military region. I am old friends with Bodhi biogenetics, and Bodhi biogenetics once gave me a token as a gift. As he spoke, he handed over the token. The man, who was dressed like a landlord, took the token and looked at it. Gu Dikang said, Bodhi biogenetics once promised my Gu family that if we ever have any trouble in the future, with this command medallion, Bodhi biogenetics will definitely lend a helping hand. I came here today to invite Bodhi biogenetics to send experts into the military district to revitalize my Gu family. However, I had a quarrel with Jiang Luoxia, and he wants to stop me from recruiting people into the military district. Therefore, when I came here, he killed. Everything he said was the truth. There wasn't the slightest bit of exaggeration, nor was there any malicious slander. The man held the command medallion and muttered to himself. In the end, he took it back and didn't return it to Gu Dikang. The command medallion is real, and so is the promise. According to my ancestors' promise to your Gu family, we will lend a hand. Gu Dikang was overjoyed. He turned to Jiang Xiu and said, Jiang Luoxia, Bodhi biogenetics will accept the Gu family's command medallion. Bodhi biogenetics respects you for becoming a demigod. You may leave. As soon as he said this, the surrounding members of Bodhi biogenetics began to whisper among themselves. He had killed so many people, so how could they let him go so easily? But remember, from today onwards, don't cause any trouble for the Gu family. Gu Dikang thought to himself, this brat got off too easy. Bodhi biogenetics actually let him go just like that. Ha ha ha. Jiang Xiu suddenly burst into laughter. Who do you think I am? Do you think that what I said was a joke? If Bodhi biogenetics dares to accept the command medallion and fulfill your promise, I will make sure that Bodhi biogenetics completely vanishes from this world. The man dressed like a landlord coldly said, Jiang Luoxia, don't be so ignorant. I let you go because it wasn't easy for you to become a demigod. You, Jiang Xiu said disdainfully. You bunch of useless people dare to say that I will let you go? Ignorant. Call Li Puti out. I will slaughter a demigod today. You're courting death. How dare you humiliate our ancestor? An old man dressed in white robes immediately formed a hand seal. A stream of cold water shot towards Jiang Xiu. Child's play. Using the water condensation technique, complemented by cold air, to form a thread, from the cold smoke that was released, the temperature was definitely extremely low. The strength of the magic condensation was also passable, but compared to the Wang family's ancestor, it was still worlds apart. Water gung reverse. Jiang Xiu casually stretched out his hand and chanted an incantation. The cold water that was shooting towards him seemed to be guided by him. With a slight shake, it changed direction in the air and returned at a speed 10 times faster than before. There was no time to react. The white-robed elder's throat was pierced through by the thread. His eyes bulged as he clutched his throat. Blood flowed out from between his fingers as he fell to the ground, dead. Reverse empty-handed spell? The expressions of the disciples with ordinary genes changed. This wasn't a very advanced spell. When one's strength reached a certain level, they could do it. Many of the people present could do it. However, the difficulty lay in the fact that if they wanted to use this spell, they had to be 10 times or even 100 times stronger than their opponent. Only by completely crushing them could they do it. The caster just now was a venerable Bodhi from their ordinary genes. There were many people in Bodhi biogenetics who were stronger than him, but no one dared to say that they could do it. So strong. Too strong. They had only heard that the demigod realm was extraordinary. Today they finally experienced it for themselves. Everyone attacked together. Their roars were filled with great anger, but there was also fear under the anger. This person was really too strong. If they fought him alone, they would be killed one by one. Now they could only rely on the advantage of numbers and fight him to death by taking turns. As soon as they finished speaking, they had already surrounded Jiang Xiu. Instantly, countless disciples attacked. Countless fireballs, wind blades, and even hidden weapons and arrows were shot toward Jiang Xiu. Boom, 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 kill him. Kill him. The light in the sky was like a concentrated fire of cannonballs. It was as if the place where Jiang Xiu stood was going to be blasted into smithereens. Humph! Just as they attacked, Jiang Xiu tapped his foot and leaped into the air. He pointed his sword finger at the void and drew a talisman in the air. Golden sand scattered, and he landed on the ground. The talisman was completed. With a ding, the golden talisman above Jiang Xiu's head suddenly exploded and poured into Jiang Xiu's body. After that, Jiang Xiu's whole body was in a state of golden light. Golden light flowed and rippled like waves. Golden talisman ripple. Boom, boom, boom. Countless spells bombarded Jiang Xiu's body, but his entire body seemed to have turned into a shadow. No matter how many spells bombarded his entire body rippled like a light wave. And then, there was no then. How is this possible? The people from Bodhi biogenetics were so shocked that their eyes almost fell out. What kind of spell is this? Unheard of. There was even a Bodhi biogenetics disciple who rushed toward Jiang Xiu with a long sword in hand. He lightly tapped his foot on the rock, and his whole body shot out like a bird. In the next moment, his sword was already stabbing toward Jiang Xiu's head. Unexpectedly, Jiang Xiu did not dodge, and allowed the sword to stab into his throat. However, that person's eyes widened in horror. This sword did not seem to be stabbing into the throat. It was more like it was stabbing into the air. There was no sense of obstruction. How? He couldn't understand. Jiang Xiu slowly raised his hand and drew a line on his forehead. Bang! With a sound, that person exploded in the air. There was no blood, no flesh and no blood. His exploded body turned into glittering golden light. The people from Bodhi biogenetics lost their voice in horror. What kind of spell is this? The people from Bodhi biogenetics were at a loss. Gu Dikang and his guards, who were far away from the battle, were already dumbfounded. Was this still a human? At this moment, Gu Dikang was at a loss. If it was said that he was disdainful of Jiang Xiu before, thinking that he was only so and arrogant, and that no matter how strong he was, it was hard to predict whether it would be a blessing or a curse if he was recruited into the Gu family. But at this moment, when even Bodhi biogenetics treated him like a child who had never seen the world, his whole heart was broken. The Gu family had a chance to recruit him. But now, his eyes were incomparably complicated. Shock, bewilderment, and astonishment, all transformed into one sentence. Big brother, Mr. Jiang deserves to be treated with the courtesy of a military chief. Chapter 130. The spells were still wreaking havoc in the sky, but every time a spell landed on Jiang Xiu's body, his body would ripple like water, passing through his body and shooting into the distance. No matter how powerful or how sudden the spells were, they could not hurt him in the slightest. He was like an image, but he was a real person. He could kill people with a raise of his hand. Jiang Xiu's means were far beyond the knowledge of Bodhi biogenetics. Everyone was shocked. Martial arts grandmasters, magic masters, and talented people were all like children in front of Jiang Xiu. The spells, sword qi, and arrows in the sky were like children's toys, useless. How can this be? Let's gather all our strength together. More than 10 martial arts practitioners lined up in a row and transferred their neishi to the person in front of them, layer by layer, and concentrated all their strength on the person in the front. Wave folding fist. The man in the front stomped his feet, and the rocks under his feet cracked. His neishi rushed out, and the clothes on his body instantly swelled up. He struck out with a bang, and the momentum of his fist was like an endless river. The invisible chi formed the shape of waves, one wave after another pushing forward the previous wave, and the strength kept increasing. Boom, boom, boom. Everywhere the waves passed, the rocks on the ground were all blown up. Good fist art. The guards accompanying Gu Dikang couldn't help but cheer. This fist art was really amazing. It was extremely difficult to transfer the neishi, and the harder part was still to come. Wave after wave, the strength kept increasing, and the power of this fist was at least 10 times stronger than before. It was a first-class fist art that could increase one's strength by more than 10 times. It was the best fist art that could increase one's strength by more than 10 times. There were only a few such fist arts in the world today, and they were all ancient fist arts. Those that could increase one's strength by more than 100 times only existed in legends. Yan Zhen thought that if Bodhi Biogenetics passed this fist art to the army, it would be enough to increase their combat strength by several times. Next year, it wouldn't be a dream for them to compete for the top 3. Humph. In Jiang Xiu's eyes, the wave-folding fist was just a stream of air. Only immortal martial arts could make this stream of air have the power of water and sublimate. This was the huge gap between immortal martial arts and martial arts. If it was only to this extent. Jiang Xiu took a light breath, then slowly exhaled. The air coming out of his mouth was much more turbid than the air outside, but the intensity was unimaginable. In an instant, the sound of the wind was so loud that it hurt people's ears. The airflow suddenly turned into a gale, and everyone cried out in shock. Oh my God, the gale swept and rose again, like a typhoon landing. The soil on the ground was lifted up, and the rocks were blown into pieces. The stacking waves that came from afar disappeared without a trace. That feeling was like turning on an electric fan in front of a typhoon, and the result was that even the electric fan was blown away. More than a dozen top-notch Bodhi Biogenetics cultivators who were standing in a row were swept away by the gale. They screamed shrilly in the sky, but unfortunately, their screams were all drowned out by the howling wind. After flying more than 20 meters in the air, some of them fell down from the strong wind and fell heavily on the ground, directly smashing into mud. Some of them hit the far end of the cliff, and were directly smashed into a bloody mess. I'm not dreaming, am I? This is too scary. This person is too scary. Those with ordinary genes were trembling. More than a dozen top-notch martial arts cultivators among them had joined forces to attack, but they still ended up like this, let alone them. Boom. Many sorcerers also joined forces and gathered a big fireball with a diameter of 2 to 3 meters above Jiang Xiu's head. It was full of spiritual power and high temperature. When it fell, it was like an atomic bomb falling. Burn him to death. They couldn't attack with magic, but with such a big fireball burning in the area around his body for a long time, they didn't believe that they couldn't burn him to death. It's just a facade. Jiang Xiu shook his head lightly. Although he had gathered a big fireball, the strength of the spiritual power inside was too weak, and the temperature was only a little higher than ordinary flames. He raised his palm, as if he was holding up the sky. What? They saw Jiang Xiu forcibly holding up the big fireball with a diameter of 2 to 3 meters with a bare hand. Once again they were stunned, but the horror had only just begun. Suddenly, a suction force appeared in his palm, and the big fireball gathered in his palm in an instant. It was completely sucked into his palm and disappeared without a trace. Damn. The sorcerers of Bodhi Biogenetics were speechless. This was too inconceivable. He actually sucked the whole fireball into his body. What kind of ability was this? The sorcerer, who was dressed like an old landlord, was completely stunned at this time. He couldn't accept what he had just seen. Jiang Xiu's eyes were deep in thought, and he put his hand in front of his mouth. His mouth was constantly opening and closing, and one after another, incomprehensible but terrifying sounds came out of his mouth. Chi-chi-ba, chi-chi-ba. They heard the sound of firewood being burned, and they felt very hot. When they nervously looked at Jiang Xiu, they didn't know when the sweat on their foreheads had already covered their faces. It's so hot. I feel like I'm going to be roasted. They felt that the heat was coming from above, and they couldn't help but look up. It would have been better if they didn't look, but when they did, they were almost scared to death on the spot. Above their heads, there were dozens of big fireballs with a diameter of 2 to 3 meters, and they were constantly pressing down. At this moment, everyone cried out in alarm, but it was all too late. Boom, 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 one after another, huge fireballs fell mercilessly. Save me! Ah! This part of the world was instantly turned into a hellish field of fire. Even if they didn't die on the spot, they would be burned to death by the fireballs. Jiang Luoxia, how could you be so ruthless? The sorcerer who was dressed like an old landlord said with bloodshot eyes. In a short period of time, dozens of Bodhi biogenetics martial and magic experts were killed. The losses were heavy. Bodhi biogenetics didn't even suffer such heavy losses in the war back then. Do you think I'm joking with you? Anyone who dares to enter his military region will be taught a lesson by me. When Gu Dikang heard this, his state of mind was completely different. He finally felt fear in his heart. Fear grew in his heart, causing his face to turn ashen. His eyes bulged in anger, and his entire body began to tremble. Who would have thought that Jiang Luoxiao of River City was so powerful that even Bodhi biogenetics was like a clay chicken in front of him? It was laughable that he didn't recognize a demigod in front of him. If he hadn't been so arrogant and self-opinionated, he wouldn't have taken his second brother's words seriously. If he had treated him like a distinguished guest, the result would have been completely different. With his godlike methods, not to mention the top 3 in the army, it wouldn't have been impossible for him to fight for first or second place. He would have even protected the Gu family's wealth and splendor. Call Li Puti out. Jiang Xiu stood with his hands behind his back, looking majestic. You're not worthy. The old landlord was so angry that his cheeks were trembling. With a hexagonal hat on his head and a yellow vest on his body, he really looked like someone from the Republic of China. Call the Son of God out. Everyone who heard this was shocked. Venerable Bodhi. Listen to me, hurry up and go. Jiang Xiu asked curiously. Son of God? What Son of God? You'll know soon enough. The man didn't answer Jiang Xiu. Suddenly, a beast-like roar could be heard from the ancient past, followed by the sound of metal clashing. It was as if a cage had been opened. Black figures jumped down from the cliff, each of them reaching a height of more than 10 meters. In the blink of an eye, they had already arrived at the scene. There were 5 or 6 of them in total. They were all wearing black sweaters, their faces obscured. Every one of them exuded a terrifying aura. Their heavy breathing made one's heart palpitate inexplicably. Jiang Xiu was also shocked to see these people. In his eyes, these people all exuded a terrifying black aura. This was the aura of a god elementalist, a ruthless aura. Who are these people? The landlord said. They are all the sons of God. They all possess the power of God. Jiang Luoxia, you will pay for what you've done today. Do you think that Bodhi biogenetics is as easy to bully as those sects and organizations? Today you will pay a painful price. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.